Are we doing the Olympic theme song? Dun, dun, dun,
Oh,
dun, dun, dun,
I think I was
dun.
doing Jurassic Park.
It's a great score. It can almost be applicable to
Damn it.
anything if you da-na-na,
It kind of
da-na-na.
sounds the same, right?
I mean, if you're going to have a film score stuck in your head, that's not a bad one.
No.
Winter Olympics are going on right now.
Yup.
And we are going to be covering probably, I mean, not for anyone born after that time frame, but probably one of the proudest, if not the proudest moment for the United States in Olympic history, right?
Yeah, and I think it was because it kind of picked up our country a little bit.
It came at a time when it was a lot more than a game. I mean, we've had moments. We've seen Michael Johnson with the gold spikes. We've seen Carrie Strug,
Drug, I believe.
land that off the vault or whatever,
The busted up
with the
ankle.
busted ankle and everything to win the gold. We've seen that next generation that from a few Michael Phelps swimming,
Shit,
but
the dream team, the redeem team.
yes,
Everybody that's gone over there that had a story. We're not quite 5 minutes in. Jesse Owens
yes,
in Germany being like, hey, Hitler, stick it here.
with the fist. But I feel like all of those moments, they're kind of secondary. They're second place. You can order those where you want, but they're always going to be somewhere behind first to the Miracle on Ice.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I heard it so many times, and it's just based on personal opinion. Honestly, I think that there was some nights in October in 2004 when the Red Sox did something to the Yankees that had never been done before. That's a bigger sports moment for me personally.
You have a bigger personal stake in that.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if you were alive at the time, watching it live and seeing that happen? And then you got to be old enough to grasp it. That's the other thing. So like for you had known what the Red Sox, what their history was and everything. You had an appreciation. You'd watched it long enough to say they're just losing.
And just a general hate for the Yankees.
Yes.
And knowing that this scenario has played out many times.
Yeah, you knew the value of that situation, of them winning and what that actually meant.
I've seen Bill Buckner in person be asked about missing that ground ball, and I've seen his reaction. I know the kind of emotions that happen for the Red Sox.
Now imagine they're playing, this is a minor league baseball team now stepping up against the Yankees and trying to win the World Series.
And in an era where we'll talk about it during the end, Al Michaels even makes a comment before the U.S.-Russia game, just basically pointing out how Americans know nothing of hockey really and just don't care.
What has that happened with? There's always, it's the World Cup.
Guilty, World Cup.
Yeah,
it happens to me.
Yeah.
I try at least.
And then just in general, kind of the Olympics, when everyone becomes an expert on curling. Or the skeleton or something like that, and everyone becomes an Olympic armchair expert. But yeah,
I love the Olympics just for that. It's just enough every 4 years or every 2 years to have like niche and things that you enjoy, like beach volleyball. I don't ever go out of my way to search for beach volleyball, except for like 2 weeks out of the year when or 2 weeks out of every 4 years that it's happening at the Olympics, and then I love it.
But you get to watch the cream of the crop, the best beach volleyball ever when you do actually watch it. Are you a Winter Olympics guy or are you a Summer Olympics guy?
I think I'm more summer just because you get so many more things like speed skating. And again, skating's magic to me. I can't do it. I don't get it. I don't understand how people can just glide along the ice like that and not fall down.
Yeah.
Like gravity somehow is just their bodies are so attuned to what they're doing that gravity just has no effect on them. So I like people that are just feet on the ground, running, jumping. Plus you get basketball.
Seeing someone be able to stick to the slickest surface that's a hazard when you walk outside to take your trash cans to the street.
Every year it takes me down. But these people, and when they go down, they know how to fall. I don't know how to fall on ice.
Or they're sliding so fucking fast out to the side and you're like, oh my God.
There's the element of danger in the Winter Olympics is about tenfold for what it is during the Summer
Maybe that's why I like
Olympics.
the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, it's so fun. You get all of these different cultural representations from all of these different countries to where you see something. Watching Bocelli sing during the opening of this Winter Olympics, it's incredible. It's history. You get to see all of the opera and everything that's going on. They do nods to Da Vinci and everything that's happened in Italy. All this history that we talk about. There's Roman soldiers walking around during dance numbers because they're just putting that kind of history behind it.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful kind of pageantry of this stuff. And for us, this happened in our country, Lake Placid, New York. We got to witness this firsthand. This stadium held 8,500 people. And during that gold medal game, it was nothing but red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
The cheers that are going on. I didn't even realize this. This is where we get USA, USA. Like, these cheers were adapted
is this
for
the
this
advent
moment.
of that?
Yeah, same thing. And again, I'm sure that most of this is geared towards hockey fans, so they're always going to say this. I'm sure somebody else has draped themselves in the American flag for a skate or something like that.
I think Jesse Owens did, didn't he?
Yeah, but Jim Craig, the iconic moment when he throws the red, white, and blue on him and he skates around, they talk about that as a defining moment that that no other athlete has done. It's definitely not true. There's been so many Olympics. But at the same time, when you hear it and you're in these emotions, you're like, God, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
We're good.
All right. All right, guys. Before we get into the episode, remember, if you haven't already signed up with it, I don't even have to do the www, patreon.com/historicallyhigh. Got some bonus content there for you. Get signed up, support the podcast. And other than that, rate us wherever you listen to your podcast. Keep doing that. Keep sending us suggestions for episodes. You got anything?
Our subscriber count is pretty insane. You guys are awesome. Thank you for listening when we make these requests and rising to the occasion. Our ratings on Spotify are crazy. If I knew how to get into Apple, I see every now and again when somebody leaves a comment and they're just so great. Thank you so much. We love doing this, and it's so cool to hear from you guys. Just what you enjoy, what you like listening to, what episodes stand out to you. It's just awesome to hear.
All right. And with that being said, let's get into the Miracle on Ice. All right, set the stage. Who's the man that's going to create this team that's going to take down the unstoppable Soviets?
The emotions that go into this episode are silly. Like, I've done horrible serial killers. We've done atrocious battles in war. And for some reason, they don't always rise to the occasion of making me emotional.
Yeah. No, I get that. I don't think that's a knock on you and your ability to empathize with certain situations. War in itself, it's easy to look at that with an overarching view of just seeing kind of numbers and pieces. But and this is as much as this is a sports story, a David versus Goliath type thing, this thing comes down to essentially being a group of college kids at a time in the Olympics when dream teams were not a thing. This is strictly amateurs playing.
Well, some people had dream teams.
Yes, okay.
Countries were able to figure out how to put pros and arguably some of the greatest hockey players that ever lived.
Correct.
Out on the ice.
America didn't do that, essentially.
Well, we couldn't, because we had the NHL. We had a professional league here to where when you graduated out of college, you could go into these ranks. And it wasn't just the NHL. There were other paid leagues that were there back then. And as soon as you got paid to do something, all of a sudden you're off the board. You're great enough to get paid to do it, but you're also now paid to do it so you can't do it on a world stage against other countries that have guys that get paid to be in the military.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And it's not to say that the guys that are going to comprise the U.S. Olympic hockey team aren't going to be good enough to be pros.
Yeah.
They just haven't taken that step. So they're college players. Some of them are putting their pro careers on hold or declining contracts.
You have an average age of 21 on the U.S. team. So you have 19-year-olds. I think the oldest guy was 24, and he was just banging around some minor leagues that you don't really get paid, playing in kind of club teams, basically, essentially back then. And so you have kind of this feeling of, if you have a 24-year-old on a team of 20 guys, it means that you're going to have at least 3 guys under 21 to be able to just balance him out. So you have a lot of youth to this, and there's a lot of, I don't want to say naivete about these kids, because they are hockey players, and hockey players are a different breed. I'm just going to get out in front of it. My hockey knowledge is like a couple NHL games, and then like Shoresy and Letterkenny are pretty much where they come from.
I think that maybe gives you an inside scoop on it.
A little bit, yeah. I know enough to be dangerous, and I know enough to be really wrong.
Not enough to have a conversation where I sound confident.
Exactly. So,
which we're literally doing right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is, if there's numbers to a sports game, I can figure it out. But it's one of those things where we're going to talk a lot about just how hockey works, but at the same time, this is about the story of a purely beautiful American team that goes over and overachieves for a country that needs it, but also kind of how they grow through things.
Yeah.
And Herb Brooks, the guy that you were just referring to that starts all this, he's kind of the perfect encapsulation of what I feel like a coach should be. Now, watching documentaries and seeing just how much of an asshole he was, that makes me back off a little bit. But at the same time, it's all intentional. And Herb Brooks was never like a super laughy, jovial, goofy dude.
Yeah.
But he has these moments of seriousness where it's just funny.
I feel like and I'm basing this off of his portrayal in the movie and everything, so you're probably going to correct me here.
He got a good actor.
Okay.
He got an actor that is so fun to watch that it changes the perspective.
It strikes me as a situation where he is giving these guys who he has to form into this cohesive unit, guys that are playing for schools that have been going against each other in NCAA championships, just hated rivals, people that have cheap shotted people in games, that they're going to come back to those situations when they're training for the Olympics. And he has to take their attention off hating each other, and he has to give them someone to dislike even more than they can possibly dislike each other. And I think he, from what I've seen, has moments like that where he's just like, if I can get them to focus some of that dislike on me, they then have a commonality and can build upon that.
And you see it in so many of these sports movies. We talked about, just before the episode warming up, this isn't a Remember the Titans situation. It is in a certain way. Remember the Titans is fantastic. It might be one of my favorite sports movies, but it just doesn't hold true to the actual story, because that final game that they play is a blowout. It's not close.
Yeah.
That's why everybody tries to adopt an integrated team after this, is because they saw the results and how great they were. In this scenario, this is how it goes. This is the actual game and how everything happens. And Denzel in Remember the Titans, he's an asshole to the white players. The black players think that that's great because he's giving it to the white guys, and then he turns around and he gives it to the black players. You're going to see an instance where him coming from the University of Minnesota off of a national championship.
Yeah.
So arguably the best college team that he could put together at the time was his team that he was coaching. And he's going to put guys from Boston University in goal over a national champion winning goalie.
Yeah.
And you see those guys in Minnesota be like, well, we're not really getting this preferential treatment. At the same time, Herb Brooks is enough of an asshole that when he's training these guys to death, the guys from Minnesota are like, thank God we had Herb before, because we know what's coming.
Yeah.
Like, these Boston guys are now suffering punishments that they never thought imaginable, because Herb Brooks is just such a maniac.
Yeah.
And he is a maniac for a reason. So 1960, Herb Brooks is an Olympic hockey hopeful. Herb Brooks in 1960 gets cut one day before the team leaves to go to Squaw Valley, California for that Olympics. He's in the team photo for the 1960 Olympic team. He gets cut the day before. And then around 3 weeks later, he watches the team that he was cut from win the gold medal.
Yeah. So this isn't an instance, just to kind of, set some stuff that may be some misconceptions. This isn't the first time that the American hockey team has won gold at the Olympics. The reason that this story is so cool is as soon as 1960s, those games are over, it becomes a situation where the Soviets go on a tear of 20 years leading up to Lake Placid, a 20-year run basically of just cleaning house.
Yeah.
And it's become a system to where it's not even close. They can't keep up with these guys.
No, and we'll talk about the Soviet machine because it's one of the most impressive sporting things that I think that I've ever seen. Like it's domination like we do basketball.
Yeah.
Except for there wasn't that blip in the middle of it where we had to have a redeem team because the Russians were just that damn good the whole time. So you have Herb Brooks sitting at home in front of a TV next to his father as they're watching the U.S. win, and you have his dad kind of mutter under his breath, well, it looks like they made the right cuts.
Oh, fucking serious?
In front of his own son. And watching Herb Brooks say this, like he delivers it so deadpan that anybody who's ever had a father that's disappointed in them for something athletic, like it had to hurt, but he just said it so just robotic that you know that it cut him at a level to where he just couldn't even go there. So this 1960 team in Squaw Valley is the last time that the United States would see the podium for 20 years.
The podium?
Yeah. I believe the podium. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it was the podium. After this, from 1960 to 1970, and this just shows you that Herb Brooks wasn't a bad hockey player.
Not a pro.
No.
Again, this is probably a little harder to get into the NHL, if the NHL is even a thing back in the 60s.
I believe it was. I'm not sure.
So he was coming off of his stint of playing for the University of Minnesota.
Yeah, from 55 to 59, he played for the University of Minnesota, so this will loop back around. But from 60 to 70, he ends up making the national team 8 times. He made the Olympic team in 64. He makes the Olympic team in 68. So he's going and playing, and as he's there, he's running into something that he could have never imagined when you make it to the Olympics at that point in time. The World Championships, he's on 8 national teams, and we'll talk about why the U.S. doesn't play a factor in winning these World Championships. He ends up taking over as the Minnesota freshman hockey coach in 1970. He's hired as the head coach 2 years later for Minnesota, and he just goes on a tear. He leads them to national titles 74, 76, and 79. So he's 3 national titles in before he's even there for 10 years. He's just cruising. If he starts in 72 and he wins 3 by 79, that's basically every other year.
Yeah, in 7 years. So yeah, he took a 2-year gap between it. He had it down 2 years.
And he wasn't even the first coach option for the U.S. men's team in 1980. There were other guys that had to turn it down for him to get it.
The other thing, too, is this is at a point now where the last 20 years, there's committees for this stuff. So there's a committee for men's hockey.
The IIHC, I believe is what it's called.
Which means there is a panel of people who have been sitting here for the last 20 years watching themselves just get embarrassed on the national stage. And now, like they have every 4 years, they have to try to make this call dart in the dark to try to figure out who can possibly try to step up and turn this thing around.
Yeah. And I believe a little bit of salt to the wound. I only heard it a couple times, so it wasn't like a through line. One of the guys that they were considering before Herb Brooks for the coaching spot was actually the guy that took his spot on the 1960 team.
Really?
Yeah. I'm sure that had he not turned it down for other reasons, Herb might have killed this guy. Take my spot once. Shame on you. Take my spot twice. I will cut you with a hockey.
I will slit your throat with my skate.
He ends up becoming the U.S. men's team, and he takes over at a time right after the college season in 79, coming off of a national championship. That's where we're going to leave them for now, because the Soviet Union is...
Before you jump to that, what you just said, I didn't realize. So he has, because the games are in 80.
Mm-hmm.
He wins the national championship in 79.
Yep.
It's the time between that to the games in which he has to put this together.
Yeah.
You think about that nowadays where training to be an Olympic athlete is a full-time job.
Oh, yeah.
And there are people that are just training for their event at all times. Yeah, you have these guys that all play hockey, but that don't play in the same systems, that don't like each other. And that makes this even more impressive to say that this is on a very short time crunch that he puts this together. This is going to be a insane juxtaposition to the team they're going to have to beat.
Well, the amount of games that they play leading up to this, they play, skip ahead a little bit. They play 61 games before they even go to the Olympics.
Really?
So in a time period from September to February, they play 61 games all over the world just to warm up for this. And this is the other thing. The look that you're giving me tells me that the movie didn't bring this up too much, and I'm pretty pumped to hear that because I didn't know, not seeing the movie, didn't see the movie, because I didn't want it to influence this. But they basically play almost a full NHL season's worth of games from September to February just to get ready for the Olympics.
I'm trying to math right now, and it is the conditioning that you would have, like, possibility for injury. You have limited guys. Okay, keep going. Jesus Christ. Back to the Russians.
Not just the Russians, the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, that's this conglomeration of the coldest places on earth to where hockey just makes sense because you have such a long time to play it.
Are you trying to make a generalization that these people just at certain points in the Soviet Union get around via ice skate? That their roads are just simply...
You don't think that happens? You don't think that if you live on a lake in the summertime and you have to get across the lake to somebody else in the wintertime, you don't just strap some skis and...
No, I'm not making that. Yes, I do believe that. But do you believe every single one of these guys grew up next to a lake, or they were just like ice skating from when they were like taught? And it probably is the case.
Yeah. I'm saying this more as like, you're not just getting the best Russians, you're getting the best Ukrainians, you're getting the best people from these other countries. You have such a larger pool to draw from.
Full on Eastern Bloc time.
Okay. In an area that's cold as shit, so these people are going to be more adept to skating.
Yeah.
In the United States, and we'll talk about it when we talk about the breakdown of the team, there's just places where hockey's not a thing.
Yeah.
Ice skating probably happens everywhere in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like it's just in one of those areas.
When it's easy to have the one thing that you need, ice, for long periods of time throughout the year, yeah, it makes sense.
And you have to find some semblance of joy.
Yeah, or transportation.
So there's kind of this Russian version of hockey that dates back pretty far. I think it was actually even English for a while. So I don't know if this is some crazy sport that the English basically shipped up to the Russians and they started playing it, but it's known as bandy. And
buddy, it's fucking field hockey on. I'm not boiling it down to that, but if you had to
you're right.
If you had to take the equivalent of saying, well, field hockey was a thing, we're just going to play this on a different surface. You know what it is? The Soviets were just looking at this to the Russians when they figured this out. And they're like, so they just run around on a field with sticks and try to hit a ball. They're like, that doesn't sound dangerous. Like, we fucking wrestle bears. We need to figure out a way to make this a little bit more dangerous. They're like, well, what if we strapped razor blades on our feet and we did it on ice? They're like, okay.
That sounds more Russian.
Yep. And then how about we make the ball maybe a flat thing that weighs, it feels like 2 pounds and really hurts if you get hit with it.
It just sounds stupid to me to say that it's field hockey on ice. And you're like, oh, so it's just hockey. And you have to say, no.
God damn it.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
So bandy is this adaptation that was played for decades. It's 11 on 11 out on the ice. So but it's a massive rink. It's much bigger.
Big link.
Yeah. It's just a completely different game. But there's this growing popularity of hockey, and of course the Soviets, trying to prove their supremacy, know that the Western world and Canada is playing this game that's starting to catch on everywhere else. So they start to kind of adapt, pushing away from bandy. I think they said now there's like 4 teams in the world that still play bandy. And I mean, look at how many hockey organizations there are. So clearly bandy was not the way of the future.
So bandy is like the Savannah Bananas. There's
Pretty
four
much.
teams, the party animals, and there's a couple other teams they play, and they just rotate.
Yeah. Well, and there has to be a body of water big enough to be able to have a bandy rink out there to play, so it's going to cut down your...
It's like the difference between pool and snooker, different side of that table.
Anything that's big enough for a bandy court
How do you even
saltwater.
Like, sometimes in hockey, fights break out. Sometimes two fights will break out at the same time. 11 on 11, you're having to monitor.
It's a lot of weight on the ice.
Yeah.
You're in a fight, and then all of a sudden both of them just fall through the ice. Game over. Let's get off the ice. They needed somebody in the 40s to kind of take them in this direction. And the first Soviet hockey coach to really grow the sport, his name was Anatoly Tarasov. And Tarasov was just a Soviet hockey monster. The way that this guy went after it is so different from any other Soviet views that you've ever had in some ways. I'm not saying that his conditioning wasn't very Soviet. These guys, all of the Russian hockey players, the way that they got around the not being professionals to play, every one of these guys on the Russian team was signed to a 25-year military contract. And then within their military contract, the only thing that they did was play hockey. There's interviews with these guys where they say that they went from a private to a lieutenant colonel in the military and never stepped foot on a military base. Because they were playing hockey for so long.
You're going to war with hockey. It's just another battlefield, I guess.
And they had like CSKA.
I get what you're saying. The loophole is,
They still had essentially a professional Russian hockey league that they weren't getting paid for because they were playing for the military that was paying them.
It was an all full-time state-sponsored hockey program.
These guys were in camps for 9 months.
This is where you get the Rocky III Ivan Drago montage of him being in the insanely technically superior Soviet training facilities and just training like a machine.
Except Tarasov saw something in Russian hockey that the Canadians hadn't figured out yet. You see these videos of Tarasov bringing in Russian ballet instructors that are teaching these guys the finer points of being able to move and understand like the musculature in your bodies and how to do this stuff. You see a group of Soviets that are basically doing jazz hands. It looks like the Jackie Moon as he's teaching them how to do the
halftime show?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's telling them to get loose. You're seeing these Soviets training as military officers that are smiling and laughing while this is happening. It's just such a weird juxtaposition of what you always think the Soviet Union was. But Tarasov knew that these guys had to be loose enough to be able to get weird and goofy because they had to do something different.
Yeah.
Up until then, the Canadian game was very north and south up the ice. It was believed that the guy with the puck was in charge of getting it past the other, or getting around a guy to be able to pass to the other four guys. Tarasov looked at this and he says, well, if the other four guys are moving faster and trying to deke and get out of the way of their defenders and get open, then all the guy has to worry about that's passing the puck is passing the puck, not getting open himself.
Yeah.
So you start to see more of a lateral game going on in Russia where they're making moves to get open to get down to the nets.
I don't know if this is like an apt comparison. So I'm kind of envisioning in my head where it's very much a slower paced mechanical game that the Canadians are playing, where it's a lot of, like you're saying, this guy has to get open in order to even pass it.
That's how the Canadians are playing.
North to south, exactly like you're saying. It's very directional. Whereas now when we look at a game like hockey or even soccer for that matter, north and south is the overall goal, to get from your goal over to their goal. But the way that it's gone about now is there are passes sideways, there are passes backward. There's a constant flow of movement. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at with the Soviets, is that these guys are not just like, hey, skate down the ice and try to outrun your guy to get open to take a shot. It's, no, keep the puck down here on this side and move back around and be constantly flowing around.
Yeah.
If you have to pass it backwards a little bit, pass it backwards. You have to pass it to the side. If you have to pass it like you're going to take a shot, but the shot's not open, dish it back out because there's constant flow of movement. Their guys are having to it's backyard football. It is when the play breaks down, yeah, you run this route, you run this route. 2 seconds later, no one's running the route, and it's just, get open.
Yep. And it's the same thing where, like, if you see a receiver go out in the NFL and he pulls a double move, he's not doing that for his own benefit. He's doing it to try to shake his defender so the quarterback can then find him wide open.
Yeah.
So you get guys on the ice that are bouncing back around. They are faking one way and going the other way, not just because they want to do it for their own benefit, for their own cardio. It's because if that guy sees an open teammate, he's going to pass it. And if you're unabated to the goal, it's just you and the goalie.
Yeah.
It's such a different technique from what they were seeing as far as more of a defensive game. It's a lot like football in a way of looking at those games used to be 3-0 because it was just a defensive stalemate where the punters are the only ones that are getting the work.
You're just trying to keep pinning your guy further and further back.
Yeah. Where you see really an offensive game open up. And these guys were so good, just how they played. And Tarasov was the main reason why they just were as good as they were, because their cardio was unmatched. Like I say, these guys are 9 months in training camp to where you have 2 hours of cardio in the morning, you have 3 hours of stick work and handling during the day, and then you finish off with another 2-hour run. You're going up hills, you're doing this again in a colder climate to where your body's just going to climatize to being cold all the time.
And you're doing that because it requires, you're never sitting still.
Yeah.
And if you're moving constantly, the other people have to be moving constantly to cover you. And if they're not as conditioned, that's where they slow down. That's where they lose their, they get behind you, and where, like you said, you get that unabated shot toward the goalie because you've lost your guy because he's fucking huffing and puffing behind you.
And at the same time, you're doing that with what's essentially the same people that the United States has it with. Kids that grew up next to a pond that waited for that ice to freeze to go out and play. You have, just like you would in the United States, you have kids that would go stomp down a flat area in a field and then run a hose out of somebody's basement and flood it just so that entire neighborhood could go out and play. Jim Craig, we'll talk about him a lot. Jim Craig becomes the goalie of the U.S. team. He said that the only reason that he was goalie when he grew up was because he didn't know the rules of hockey. So as a goalie, the only rule was just don't let the puck in the net. You have these kids that fall in love with this game, and then they go into this militant system where it's just like, this is your career now.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. You get to see your family for 3 months out of the year, and the rest of the time, the other 9 months, you're ours. We do whatever we want with you. And they created some of the greatest hockey players around. I mean, just the level of how they were playing was unmatched. And you get different things where Tarasov is playing these huge factors in the development. This goalie named Vladislav Tretiak. Tretiak's still to this day considered one of the greatest goalies of all time. From all the way back then.
Yeah.
We're talking 45 years later. Tretiak's a guy that was doing things that just nobody else could do. And he plays a massive role in this because it's just a huge Soviet mistake. But Tarasov led the national team to 9 straight world championships. 3 straight gold medals in a row. They won gold medals in 64, 68, and 72. Every single one of those 3 years after that, or every single one of those 4 years after that the U.S. won, the Soviet hockey machine comes on. And the Soviet hockey machine rolls through everybody.
So he won in 64, 68, 72, 76.
Yeah, in 76.
Okay.
But Tarasov was only there for the first 3.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. I don't really understand. Something very Soviet happened to Tarasov that I will just never get. And then he wins in 76. So everything between that 60 games to the 80 games, the Russians won gold.
And that's just the Olympics, but like you said, world titles, which also means that Herb Brooks, and I'm not sure how far the United States got in those national, tournaments or whatever. But at the same time, they were there to witness this game coming to life.
Yeah. Soviet players, again, weren't considered these professionals because they had these other military lives. but you also have everybody else in the Soviet Union. So this isn't just the Russians that are doing this. Like I said, this is the Ukrainians and everybody in those Eastern blocs that you're able to pull these people from. And they have these other leagues. Tarasov was also the coach of the CSKA, which was like the top team in Russian hockey, just outside of the World Games and the Olympics.
Because they're also playing internally each other and everything, right?
Yeah, so you have this just basically machine that's working to make all of this stuff happen.
It's a farm system.
Yeah, and you have junior teams that you're bringing guys up and playing, but these guys are having 9 and 10-year careers just playing for these world teams.
Yeah.
And they're looked at as heroes, but on the spreadsheet, it's just a soldier in the army still. So you're not getting a whole lot until you go out and you play these international games. And Tarasov, we'll talk about it a little bit later, was kind of the reason why they started reaching out beyond the Olympics. You start getting these tournaments with Canada basically going head on, saying that this was a game that you guys created and we're better than you now. So we're going to come to Canada outside of the Olympics and we're just going to ram it down your throats.
Yeah. Like exhibitions.
Yeah. And it's just tournaments and games that they play, but it's the Russians finally, or the Soviets, I'm going to do that so much. It's the Soviets finally reaching out and being like, yo, we're not just going to beat you every 4 years. We're not just going to beat you at the World Championships. We're going to do it in front of your people.
We don't want to give you 4 years of time to try to build confidence in your naivety to say, oh, yeah, we're totally going to have a chance to beat them in 4 years. We'll be prepared and everything. It's like, no, we're going to come to your house. We're going to put you back in your place so you're that less, the confidence doesn't get too high. And then, like you were saying, you basically have people that are soldiers. And it's like, what does this guy do for the army? Oh, he plays hockey. But because he's a soldier, that's his job. He's not being paid to be a hockey player. He's being paid to be a soldier. The guys that are going to be playing against them are going to be, athletes and hockey players, but they're also students.
Yeah, they don't have the same kind of militance that the Russians do. The discipline's just not there. They're going out and having house parties. They're hockey players. Hockey players have been nuts from the beginning of hockey. Yes. That's just how it works. Brooksy's the exact same way, except for he wasn't the fun-loving psycho. He was just a psycho. And you have a time in the late 70s and 80s back in the United States where shit's just not going well. There's a looming recession. There's inflation that hadn't been seen since the Great Depression. And all that stuff is setting in on the people. You have gas shortages going on where people are waiting in line to get gas for fucking 6-7 hours at a time. Like you're going to the gas station because you need gas, and then you have to sit in a line for 6 hours to where your car is invariably going to have to run for a certain amount of time to where you might be 15 cars back and you're just pushing your car up to the pump.
It's a Red Ball Express, man.
Pretty much.
You're losing the fuel while you're having to wait in line for the fuel type thing.
And not only that, on a world stage, you're living through the Iranian hostage crisis. Everybody around the world is seeing your shame right now in this terrible situation. It's not shame. That was the wrong word to use, but kind of your desperation to get your people back. It's a very tenuous situation on a world stage.
Yeah. You're not in a position of strength.
Right before the Olympics happened, December 1979, you have the Soviets invading Afghanistan. You have the beginnings of that whole debacle that we've chased up until damn near present day because of what happened back then.
Yeah.
And there's no time to really try to figure this stuff out. You have the U.S. and the USSR still in the middle of the Cold War, still going through this. And now you're going to see kind of a possibility that this is going to have to play out in a peaceful arena. Like, you can't kill each other to get your point across here. This is strictly a game where you have soldiers that are professionals that are playing a game, and you're pulling guys that are doing bong rips on the weekends from college to go try to beat those soldiers.
Yeah.
It's so scary to think about. And Brooksy ends up holding this kind of it was a tryout style kind of tournament in Colorado Springs. It was known as the National Sports Festival. This is something that he created just to kind of get this talent together. It showcased 64 teams that were put together mostly by regions. There were the Easterners, the guy from Boston University and over in that area. You're going to have a a Minnesota team that's kind of Minnesota, Wisconsin. You're going to have a Michigan team. And then basically everybody else from all these other areas that aren't hockey hotbeds go to.
It's like Little League World Series style.
Kind of. Yeah. And you have these guys that are playing these friendly games. I mean, it's just a round robin tournament, but at the same time, like you were talking about, if you break them up by regions, these regions have had problems with each other playing hockey before. So there's going to be some fights and there's going to be some arguments. And from this round robin tournament, he ends up pulling 26. I believe it was 61 players. No, that's not the right number. 67 players, I believe, down to 26.
Do they know what the intention of this tournament is? Is to okay? So
they're not just coming. Herbie's the coach at that point in time, so they know kind of they're showing off for a guy that will be picking this team.
Gotcha. Okay.
He whittles it down to 26. From 26, they're going to need to whittle it down for 20 for the Olympics. And he didn't necessarily choose the best players. He chose guys who could make a team better. And a lot of this comes from him seeing how the Russians play. He lived through a time on the ice where he's like, how are these guys so good?
It's because they play as a team.
Yeah. Well, how is it late in the third period and everybody's in deep water and nobody's moving fast and the Russians are still playing like it's 2 minutes into the first period? There's got to be a reason why they're doing this.
So he's picking this team, not just simply saying, this is the best guy from Boston, this is the best guy from Minnesota, this is the best guy from Maine, yada, yada, yada. He's saying, this guy from Boston works really well within this system and is a great player at this position. I think he's going to mesh well with these people from this school at these positions. And in hockey, too, from what I understand, you have lines.
Yep.
Not lines on the ice, but you have lines in which these players play together. So it would be like in the sense of if you were in you had a basketball team, and you were like, I have a post point guard and a shooting guard that I always want on the court at one time because they flow really well together. But I have like 2 or 3 sets of those.
Yep.
And so I change them in all at the same time. Whenever I send in a point guard, a shooting guard, and a post, when I pull them out, the same guys, same positions go in, but those guys have been practicing together with each other.
Yeah, so you'll have, out on the ice at any given time, you'll have a left wing, a right wing, and a center that's your front line. You'll have 2 defensemen, and then you'll have a goalie. So there's 6 guys on the ice that are taking these positions, and they're running in lines to where you're going to be able to pull out 3 at 40 seconds and put a new fresh line in because these guys are skating all the time and you're trying to keep them as fresh as possible.
Yeah.
Now, you have to have good lines all the way through because if you have a weak line and they have to play as much as everybody else,
you have 40 seconds of weakness.
Yeah.
It's like having a power play. And a power play, for those who won't watch hockey, if someone gets penalized, that person gets pulled out, and if they're put in the penalty box, it's not like another guy gets to just come in and get that team back up to full strength of 5 players and a goalie. They're short a man down until that, whatever time it is, 2 minutes, whatever you want to say, until that time frame is out. So during that time, they call it a power play, and that's when you essentially...
Or a penalty kill for the defense.
Yep, and that's where you have your advantage. That's where you technically want to press your attack as much as possible, and they kind of can't attack too much because they're just worried about defense.
Yeah. So you have to have a strong team all the way through. And Brooksy kind of used this term. He wanted his guys to be able to play sophisticated pond hockey, which is a weird thought because if you're playing on a pond, you're probably not too sophisticated. But he wants everybody to be the best at their position, to know exactly what they're going to do because they're not running set offenses. Just like Tarasov was telling these Soviet players, you got to be able to get open. I can't draw something up to get you open. Be creative to be able to open yourself up for the opportunity to score.
There. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he was choosing these guys, not that they were necessarily system guys that all knew how to play together. He knew that nobody was going to be able to mesh in that much of a time. But if you get enough great players out there together, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's sophisticated pond hockey. His training is so different the way that typical teams ran stuff. He had this team doctor who he escaped Germany. He was a Latvian-born doctor named Visvladis Nagelbod. It's the last time I'm going to say that because I know I said it wrong. But he handles the timing of these line changes that you were just talking about. He's looking at where their physicality is and where their strengths are, and he's saying, well, if we can get 40 good seconds out of these guys, we can send another fresh rotation.
If we can get 40 seconds of full clip,
yeah,
this is when them knowing that they only have 40 seconds, maybe a few seconds more, they then know for that 40 seconds they can go all out because they're going to be pulled out. So you never have that, I can't go max because I have to conserve this energy. It's like, no, I know once I'm out on this ice, I go full clip because in 40 seconds I'm going to get a breather.
And I trust that there's somebody on the bench with a stopwatch that's going to get me off at 40 seconds exactly.
Yeah.
You also have him paired with a guy named Jack Blatherwick, who was in charge of conditioning at Minnesota. And he was a psycho too. He knew how to get these guys in shape. There were these things called Herbies that the guys at the University of Minnesota were pretty intimately aware were a thing. They're lines in basketball, except for you're going to have less on a hockey rink. So you start at the end line.
Suicides,
yeah.
Okay.
It's not a fun word to use.
I know it's not, but everyone that's been
if you've done one, you understand why they're called that.
Yeah.
So you start at the end line, you go blue line back, then you go red line back, then you go blue line back, then you go end line to end line back. So your body is just sucking for oxygen at this point. That lactic acid is just shooting out of your muscles. And if you can do 2 or 3, that's a pretty good workout. You're doing pretty good if you can do 2 or 3. These guys were used to eclipsing 2 and 3 by much larger numbers. And eventually it's going to come to a point that happens overseas in Europe where it's not an amount that they do, it's an amount of time that they do them. And you see a pretty direct change in the way that the U.S. Olympic team plays after this happens.
Yeah.
But he's just training these guys to have cardio for that third period. For all the times that he saw the Russians out there just playing like they were just fine, he knows that that has to be the equivalent on his side.
So for him, he's looking at the game that the Russians are playing and saying, before I can even, the thing that has to get taken care of first is not can these guys play with the Russians. It's can these guys skate with the Russians. Because regardless of how well they can play, if they can't keep up and skate with them, that's all irrelevant. Once you start getting tired, there's been some sports like facts about like dehydration, things like that, tiredness, about not just like the physicality and how much that diminishes after a certain period of time, but also your mental acuity and how you're thinking and how you're reacting. And so his standpoint, it sounds like, is if I can have these guys keep up and make sure, or even maybe outskate these guys, then I maybe don't have to rely so much on the pure synergy that these guys are going to have, because then I can put the Russians, I can put the Soviets on their back foot and open it up a little bit more.
And at the same time, you brought it up perfectly. Herbie did a lot of this stuff because he needed everybody to hate him. Herbie needed to be the common enemy of everybody on this team because there were guys that had been in pretty nasty fights in college against each other. There's these rivalries that go on to where if you're fighting each other, you're not going to be playing together. Herbie ends up bringing this guy on named Craig Patrick. I believe Patrick was actually somebody that came and had played and tried out at this showcase that didn't end up making the team, but Herbie looked at him and he goes, "They need to hate me. They need to love you. You need to be the guy that after I walk out from motherfucking these guys, that they turn to and that you can give them advice to bring them together."
After I leave the locker room, he's like, "Everyone good? All right. Come see me if you have any questions."
That guy's a dick, huh? We all hate him.
I don't know if this is specific. I would assume maybe some of it's true, but they do kind of explore some of the rivalries. One of them they focus on is a dude that was from Boston. One was from Minnesota. And he's like, this guy cheap shot me in one of the games and knocked me out, and I couldn't even play the championship game. And then I had to watch him win the
title.
Yeah.
And it's just, in any sport that you play, there's always going to be rivalries. And these kids, again, they're not playing for money. They're driven by piss and vinegar and passion. And if that's the only thing that you're driven by, if somebody slashes you a month before this, you're going to remember.
Yeah.
It's never going to leave your mind.
What's the only thing at this point that's better than a college national championship? It's going to be an Olympic medal. Yeah.
Yeah. And even making the team, because you have 26 guys out there now that are fighting for 20 spots.
Out of the entire country.
Yeah. And there's points in time during these interviews where they're talking to these guys. I forgot it. It was a documentary that just came out right before the Olympics. It's very good. It talks to the guys. I'll look it up at break to just give it to you. But in all of these documentaries that they've ever done, and they ask these guys, how confident were you going into that 20-man cut or that 6-man cut? Everybody that they asked said that they weren't comfortable. There was nobody that said, I think I have a spot.
I feel safe.
Yeah. And you have these clicks because they're coming from colleges and they're looking at it and they're like, well, Herbie's a Minnesota guy, so he's going to take all the Minnesota guys. All the Minnesota guys didn't make it.
Mm-hmm. But that's the attitude you want because a safe person isn't going to try as hard. He wanted everyone feeling the heat.
Well, he knew that they had to learn to play together. He knew that they had to learn to hate him on an equal setting, so they stopped hating each other. They go on this 20-game, basically it's a barnstorming tour of Europe, Canada, the U.S., playing national teams, pro teams, college teams, anybody that they can get their hands on. And then the 61st game is going to be at Madison Square Garden. The last game that they play is going to be a tune-up against the Russian team. So you finally get to see this, and we'll talk about it when we get to it, but there's a reason why Herbie wanted to do this, and it makes so much sense as soon as you realize why he places this game where he places it.
No, I get what you're saying, but I'm thinking of the standpoint from the dudes that are on the committee for men's hockey. When they hired Herb, of course, they're trying to give themselves the best shot. He sees how he's putting his team together. I mean, how confident are those guys? Is it just more of a, hey, we're just hoping we haven't placed. We're just hoping to place against this team and have some type of respect we can walk out of Lake Placid with? Or was there the belief that they were like, oh yeah, we're totally going to beat these guys?
In the World Championships in 1979, the United States came in 7th place. They're not thinking we need to put together a gold medal team. They're thinking we just need to not get embarrassed. They're embarrassing us in Afghanistan right now. We don't need to go out there.
So seeing Herb set up a tune-up game right before the Olympics with this team, they're probably looking, being like, what are you going to do to the confidence of this team going into the games?
Yeah, you're going to wreck it. You're jumping straight to expert.
Yeah.
Something that... And maybe we'll talk about his thought process behind it, but you do have to worry, like, this is at Madison Square Garden. This is a big event that's going to be televised nationally. Do we really want the confidence of our people going into this to see this happen?
Not only that, man. Like, okay, so what you just said earlier was that the Olympic Hockey Stadium held 8,500 people, 8,500. Yep. Madison Square Garden is thousands and thousands more than that.
30, 40,000, something like that.
And you're saying, hey, what's supposed to be this matchup that everybody wants to see that has so much meaning outside of a hockey game, you're going to put it in front of so many people with kind of an untested squad, basically, against what result are you hoping for?
We'll talk about some things that happened in the lead-up years to the Olympics that the Soviets did, that it's... What you just said will sound even more logical when we talk about them. But basically this tour starts out fairly well. They start out in Canada. They have some decent luck coming into it. They're not necessarily winning games, but they're keeping things close, and Herbie's seeing some stuff that he likes. The tour in Europe started off pretty well, but kind of the main highlight from what happens in Europe is they end up going to play the Norwegian national team. Norwegian national team is going to be somebody that they're going to play in the Olympics.
Is this a situation, I don't want to generalize, but hockey probably being, like you said, there's certain areas of the United States that hockey isn't even a thing.
Yeah.
The same way now where you look at schools and it's like, do you have a hockey team? They're like, we have one ice rink in town and it's for like the public. Like we have recreational teams, kind of like lacrosse. Like it's only popular in certain places. Is Norway one of those places because it is a fucking cold place and everything like that? Only certain sports are going to exist. It's close to the Soviet Union where this is a huge thing. I feel like those places like Norway, Czech Republic, Romania, why am I missing this? You keep making reference to, Ukraine.
Yep.
These seem like places that, while not as good as the Soviets, because they're probably pulling from...
the Soviet Union.
Correct, but these other places are probably pretty fucking decent at hockey.
Yeah. you have the means, you have the time, and you have the ability. So there's a lot of different factors for them to be able to do it. The first test that Herbie's crew is going to have for these games, for the Olympics, is going to be the Norwegian national team. And a 3-3 tie. A 3-3 tie it's not a good outcome because you know that you're better than this Norwegian team. Herbie is royally pissed off. After this game, as they're starting to skate off, Herbie's running out onto the ice. And he goes, no. Everybody get back out there. If this is how you guys are going to play against the Norwegian national team, we need to do some more conditioning because you look lazy, you look lackadaisical, you just look like you didn't care.
Where was this taking place at?
Norway.
Okay, so they're still on this barnstorming tour, but now they're kind of doing international stuff. Yeah,
they're over in Europe, and so you have the Norwegian people that just saw them play the United States to a 3-3 tie, which they didn't lose. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Herbie sees this as the worst thing in the world because if that's the output that he's going to get against the Norwegian team, they're not going to touch the Soviets.
Yeah.
It's not even going to be close. So Herbie lines them up, and they do Herbie's for 45 minutes.
In the same place that they just played, right?
All of the people have left this stadium. They've shut the lights off.
This is a very pivotal moment in the movie, because I'm going to make a lot of references to the movie because I want you to also correct these to like kind of give me some fill in the gaps. So the way this is set up is just like you said. They're also sitting on the bench. Did they make any mention that he overheard players talking about girls in the stands?
No.
Okay. So that's something that happens during the movie. I don't know if it actually occurs, but he's walking behind the players.
They're 20-year-olds in Norway.
No, I totally get you.
I'm pretty sure they're talking about the women in the
But
stands.
they're leaning over and being like, look at the blonde about 4 rows up and like 2 left. And he's like, oh my God. And this pisses him off because, again, it's a 3-3 tie. So he gets them out there on the same rink they just played on. Guys got to come out and try to smooth the ice and everything. They're turning off the power because everyone's gone home. And he's like, tell the guy I'll lock up.
Yep. It comes to a point to where these dudes are going down to the end line, and they're not just skating barehanded. They're carrying their sticks the entire time. And
in the same uniforms that they just played the entire game in.
Yeah, they just played 3 full periods of hockey against a national team, and they're doing Herbie's for 45 minutes, and they're slamming their sticks up against the end line when they get there up against the boards. And Herbie's screaming inside this empty arena as it echoes, just saying, if I hear one more stick hit that board down there, you guys are going to run these till you die.
Does he do a thing where he says again? Again?
I'm sure. I mean, nobody made reference to it, but at that point in time, you're not remembering everything.
No, I get that. I'm trying to figure out dramatic effect and everything. Part of the kind of the power of that scene is that Craig's out there, or the assistant coach. What was his name again?
Patrick.
Okay, yeah. Patrick's out there.
Craig Patrick, yeah.
He's the guy that has the whistle. And Herb's out there, and these guys are on the line, and he's like, again. He blows the whistle, they go do it again. He'll say some stuff, and they'll be like, again. And it gets to the point where Patrick is just kind of looking at Craig, or looking at Herb, like, and he kind of gives him a look like, come on, man. And he's like, again. And at a certain point, God, I hope this isn't for dramatic effect. I hope that this is mentioned in the documentaries. Is he asking questions about who people play for? Because there's a scene in there where he's like, he's calling out the players. He's like, who do you play for? And they're going back and they're saying who they played for at college. And he's saying, I played for Boston College. He asked another guy, and he's like, I played for you at Minnesota. And finally, one of the guys and in the movie, it's Rizzo. And he's like, he says his name, and he's like, and who do you play for? And he's like, I played for the United States of America. God damn, it didn't happen, right?
I would assume there's a little artistic effect to that. I mean, it sounds very much
That's just good fucking writing.
Like what Denzel does in Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
It's, great coaches might all do the same thing. Who knows? Maybe that was what he was going for. Either way, the absolute ass kicking that he gave them that night, they show up the next day to play the Norwegian national team again. 9-0. Just
blink them.
Wipe the slate.
After fucking doing that for... That's what shows you also the conditioning.
Yeah.
Do you know what would happen to your legs doing that for 45 minutes, a
Brother,
normal person.
I do 5 suicides. There's a chance that I'm crawling to bed.
I'm throwing up,
Yeah.
hands down. And the
I'm not
next
moving
day,
for days.
I can't sit on the toilet the next day.
Yeah, you play a good basketball game, a good City League basketball game, and the next day you're going to feel it eventually. But again, we're talking about bodies that are in their 30s, not in their 20s. And these guys were just coming off of a season. So they were probably pretty in shape completely, but then Herbie steps it up. But 9-0, they blanked this Norwegian team. Clearly, message was received. They understood what was going on. They end up playing the remaining schedule in the U.S. shortly after they come back. Their final warm-up is coming with the Soviet national team. But over the 61 games, they went 41-17-3. Pretty good. With the amount of guys and the amount of teams that they're playing, to go that 41-73 or 41-17-3, they're playing very well. In 1972, just a little flashback for the Soviet side. This is without Tarasov. Tarasov had pushed this entire time to get them on a stage to go to Canada to play. 72 rolls around, and they're going to play this thing called the Summit Series in Canada. Tarasov is relieved of his position before they can go. This dream Tarasov had of going and doing basically these series against these countries in their countries, he's fired right before.
Does it ever explain? I mean, that's information
That's the Soviet part of this.
Yeah.
There's rumors and there's things, but there's never been like a serious, true, this is exactly what happened.
So, unfortunately, Mike Ruzioni did not say, I believe the United States of America. But what actually happened might have actually been better on camera. So, Mark Johnson ends up smashing his stick against the glass in frustration. And Herb at that point realized that they'd kind of reached their breaking point. He was like, okay, we're done.
Mark Johnson is a phenomenal hockey player. Mark Johnson wasn't a Minnesota Gopher. This was something that Herbie stumbled upon and was like, yes, you're the man. But Eruzione does become the captain of the team. So you have the heart of the team being used as a vehicle to run those emotions that are going to make you cry when he says, well, I play for the USA.
Instead of seeing Mark Johnson hit the stick and be like, God damn.
Yep.
Yeah.
1972, the Soviets go over and play the Summit Series with Canada. And this includes Canadian professionals. So now is the time when the Russians can say, we're not doing this amateur bullshit. Canada hadn't fielded world teams and I believe a couple Olympic teams because they were protesting against the professional rule. And now we can go over and play the guys that Canada says are the best in the world because
no
they're
excuses.
professionals. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to play at home and home. We're going to play 4 games in Canada, and then you're coming back to Russia for 4 games. The Soviets go 2-1-1 in Canada. They end up beating Canada's best 2 times, lose to them once, and tie to them once. Then they go to Russia. And they go 1-3 in Russia. Or the Soviets go 1-3 in Russia. A major part of them going 1-3 in Russia is a guy named Bobby Clark. I believe he's in the NHL Hall of Fame, the Hockey Hall of Fame, all this stuff. Sounds like a great guy. Again, before my depth of hockey knowledge could ever even begin to start, before I was born, this guy was playing hockey. He ends up slashing one of the Soviets. It was Valery God damn it. Kharlamov, yes. Ends up slashing him in the ankle, fractures his ankle in Game 6. So that means that Kharlamov is out for Game 6 and Game 7, or Game 6, Game 7, and Game 8. You lose your best player. Canada's playing with their guys. They're going to get better.
Yeah.
And it's just Canada goes out and wins. But it also brings up kind of this thing where the Russians play very disciplined because they know that penalty minutes are always going to be important because you always want to be either at even strength or on a power play.
Yeah.
You don't want to be a man down.
You're never going to do anything to hurt your team.
Yeah, by doing something stupid.
Yeah.
They go and play the Canadians. They're like, we're not getting paid to do this. We'll fucking slash you. We'll check you into the boards. We'll play dirty. And the Soviets are seeing these Canadians come in and do shit like slashing Kharlamov off on the leg and fracturing his ankle. And so the Soviets are seen as like,
how fucking hard do you have to hit someone to break their ankle with your stick? Like in the course of a game. Like, how do you, yeah.
Yeah, it was very intentional. And I think Bobby Clark kind of alluded to the fact later on that it wasn't an accident. So they lose this left wing scorer and they fall 1-3 in Russia. 1979, the Challenge Cup. The Soviets are going to play a 3-game series against NHL All-Stars at Madison Square Garden. Now, when I say NHL All-Star team, you're going to think, oh, well, this will be, the best people from everywhere all around the world, right? Because they play in the NHL, and that's where the best people play. This team was made of 23 Canadians and 3 Swedes. So the NHL, the league that's primarily played in the United States, is 23 Canadians and 3 Swedes.
Makes sense.
Not one person from the United States made the NHL All-Star team at this point in time. So while it sounds like we're doing something that's very United States oriented, it's just Canadians and Swedes playing against the Russians, and it goes bad. It goes real bad. The Soviets end up going 2-1. The total goal scores were 13-8, so there were some games that were out of hand. You have February 9th, 1980. The last warm-up game. So the last thing that the people at Madison Square Garden saw were the Soviets come in and take 2 games away out of 3 from the NHL All-Stars.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing an Olympic team that's not really slated to do much, that's going 7th ranked into the Olympics, going up against a team that you saw just pretty much dismantle the professional league.
Yeah. Expectations are low.
Yeah, and it should have been that way because it ends up being a 10-3 romp for the USSR. 10-3. They were never even in it. But there were some positives that Herbie saw, and one of them was that his team had the legs to compete. In the third period, as they were getting their ass spanked, they were still out there playing. They were still out there fighting.
So it wasn't for a lack of the conditioning, but at this point now, kind of like we were talking about before, that part has now been taken care of. Now you just need to get the team cohesion and the team flow together to keep up. So you've got one ingredient of this. You need to add in this other ingredient, and then you'll be able to compete.
Well,
but you don't have time because this is right before the Olympics.
Even more important than that, Herbie had never coached against the Soviets. So he had never had time to sit on the bench and watch what's going on. The Soviets had this guy named Viktor Tikhonov that's their new, I just threw that one out there. I'm pretty sure it's Tikhonov, who's their new coach. And Tikhonov carries a stopwatch that's attached to him at all times. He's timing how long it takes guys to get up and down the ice. He's timing these shifts to the millisecond. He's just very much a robot in what he does. So Herbie gets to see how Tikhonov is running these line changes and see how he's kind of adapting his game to know what's going on.
In response to what Herb is doing with his game.
Yeah. And Herbie gets asked after the game if he ever felt like there was a chance. And the Soviets jumped out to a 4-0 lead, and that was just pretty much it. Herbie says after the game that he knew that they were in trouble when they were doing the lineup announcements for the Soviet team, and his entire team was slamming their sticks on the ground and clapping because they knew these guys and these were stars that they all looked up to.
These were guys, and it doesn't have to be the same guys, but you have 20 years of the most dominant hockey performance. You know what it is? It's exactly like if you were to have the NBA Dream Team.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, guys from other teams walked out there and they're announcing the lineup. You're going to have guys that are looking at Michael Jordan and guys that are looking at Patrick Ewing and guys that are looking at fucking Scottie Pippen and just doing this. Your posters on my, I have designed the way I play to emulate you. You're in awe. And I think as soon as, like you just said, it didn't even take the game having to start. When you're in awe of something, you've already resigned yourself in a position to say, if I lose, well, of course I'm going to lose. This is the master of what I'm trying to do. There's no shame when you have that feeling in your head of saying it's okay if I lose because these guys, why wouldn't these guys beat us? You've already lost.
Tretiak is the greatest goalie on the planet, and I'm supposed to score against him.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. Next thing that Herbie says is he knew that they were in a whole lot of trouble. It was in the second period, this guy named Vladimir Kurtov pulls off, and again, I'm not a hockey guy, one of the most beautiful goals that I've ever seen. It was just, he deked around, he spun around, and he just kind of fires it in. He says, I knew that we were in a lot of trouble when Kurtov scored on that beautiful goal and I started cheering. So even Herbie at this point in time was so in awe of what he was watching from the Soviets.
You forget where you are.
Yeah.
You forget you're just someone. And to see something and you have a lifetime of hockey and you see something that takes you out of the moment of your composure and has you just like, wow. Yeah, that again, that sets you back in a position of being like, okay, so now I have that expectation in my head that we can't win.
I'm going to cheer for a guy that's going to make me so sad in 3 weeks when he does it in the Olympics.
Yeah.
At the same time, it also sort of changes the way that the Soviets looked at the United States, because if this is the best they have, if they just went and played a 60-game tune-up series and we just come out and go 10-3, are we ever going to take them seriously when we play them? There's this sense of that the Soviets just kind of let their guards down. And Herbie talks about it later. He goes, we didn't need to beat them because we already had them to the point of being suicidal. We just had to hand them the blade to cut their own throats. And that's kind of what they do. This final roster cut ends up coming down to 20 men. This guy named Jack O'Callahan, he was a defenseman, actually partially tears his MCL in this tune-up game. And defensemen, since you only have two of them to swap out in lines, you're just going to have less of them because you need the offense to be able to play. You need your
lines of the people that are going to score, which are three of those guys that you're changing every time.
So anybody that is going to be a defenseman is going to be very important. O'Callahan's a defenseman, and he ends up tearing his part of his MCL right before this happens. And ultimately, Herbie ends up keeping him on the team because he knows that O'Callahan is such an important part of the chemistry of the team. He's just a goofy dude. He has maybe one of my favorite lines of this whole entire thing that he actually says, because I watched him say it and rewound it like 4 times just to see his drunken stupor as he gets corrected. But you have O'Callahan that still makes the team. Bob Sutter ended up breaking his ankle 3 months before when they were in Canada. And he makes the team as a defenseman too. So you're down short already 2 injured defensemen that you could have replaced, but they were so important to the chemistry of your team that you kept them along. And O'Callahan doesn't end up playing very much. Sutter doesn't even come back until the medal rounds start. But these guys are so crucial to what's going on that even leading up to it, he's telling O'Callahan, even if I don't pick you, I need you to come and we're going to find you lodging. I want you in the arena. I want you in the locker room with these guys because you're such a positive influence. And O'Callahan's just this goofy dude from a suburb in Boston that's just, I mean, he's a wild guy. And flashing forward to one of the press conferences, he just comes in 3 sheets to the wind.
After they'd won.
To answer questions. He's just a wild dude. So you have the breakdown to 20 guys. You have 9 players from the University of Minnesota. You have 2 from Bowling Green. You have 4 from Boston University. You have 2 from Wisconsin. You have 2 from Minnesota Duluth. You have 1 from North Dakota. The one from North Dakota is Dave Christian. Dave Christian's father and uncle both played for the 1960 team. They are gold medalists. They end up going back to North Dakota, and I believe they started the Christian Hockey Stick Company. So Dave Christian comes in as his father's son. It's
legacy.
Yeah, it's legacy, but
that also shows you how small the hockey community was when you get picked and your dad and uncle, you said, were both on this last gold medal team 20 years ago.
It comes a point after this where O'Callahan's dad, who's like 5'6" and just this loudmouth dude from Boston, says Dave Christian is not his father's son anymore. Dave Christian's father is the father of Dave Christian.
Yeah.
Like it just because that's how big of a role Christian
That's Dave
played.
Christian's dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Jim Craig is the starting goalie. Jim Craig is a BU goalie that starts over Steve Janisak,
who was the national championship winning goalie for Herb Brooks' last 79 team, right?
Yeah. And Steve Janisak never sets foot on the ice during a game the entire time. But that doesn't matter because he's another chemistry guy. He's a guy that's always positive. He's happy to be there. We'll talk about at the end why he says that he's actually the guy that won the Olympics, and it's just such a cool story. It shows you where these guys' brains were at. And seeing them sit back and watch film in this newest documentary, you can also see like them watching old practice films and be like, "Who's that over there? Is that Aruzio over there fucking around in the corner?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "Yeah, that was me. It looks like me." And they're just having fun. And then you have Janny getting shots taken at him in goal. Like, God, Janny was really good. Can you believe that he never set foot on the ice during the Olympics?
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there laughing along. Like, they're just all having fun. Based upon their 7th place finish in the 79 World Hockey Championships, the United States goes in the 7th of 12 teams.
Are we at the Olympics?
Yeah, we're at the Olympics. So
Okay.
let's do
you want to take a bathroom break?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hello. Listen, while we head to the restroom and get ourselves something to drink, why don't you do something nice for yourselves? Head on over to patreon.com/historicallyhigh and get signed up for a little bonus content. I mean, come on, you deserve it.
If you want to keep up with this, our main source of social media is going to be our Instagram, which is historically high pod, POD.
You can also head over to, it's Twitter, it's X, it's Twitter, come on, at historically high, and that's high, H-I like, high.
If you have any recommendations, you want to get to us, just want to reach out and say hello, you can hit us up on our email at historicallyhighpodcast, HIGH podcast @gmail.com.
All right, and with that said, let's get back to the good stuff. Okay, so we come to it at last, the Olympics.
And the setting is very interesting with being in Lake Placid in the United States, but you also have 2 divisions that are going into this out of the 12 teams. So there's going to be 6 in each division. You have the blue division, which is Sweden, the United States, Czechoslovakia, Romania, West Germany, interestingly enough, and Norway. So a West German hockey team. Like, it's still technically a free democratic nation, but at this point, maybe we've kind of let them walk on their own. Like, do you think there's still a lot of Allied influence in West Germany in 1980?
35 years removed from World War II. We're still in the Cold War.
Yeah. So we definitely
East
still
and
got
West,
people there.
yeah, yeah. When did the Berlin Wall come down? We should know that.
89.
Was that when David Hasselhoff really took off?
Maybe. You have the Red Division. The Red Division was the Soviet Union, Canada, Poland, Japan, oddly enough, the Netherlands, and Finland. I guess.
You don't think hockey when you think of Japan.
No, certainly not. But also, I think that there's a lot of crazy high peaks over there that we just don't ever really think about that get snow and that are probably like world-class ski and snowboard mountains.
Do you think that hockey was introduced to Japan via World War II, kind of like other things got during the occupation
Kind
and
of
everything?
basketball and that type of thing? Possibly. I also do believe that the Sino-Japanese relations were good at some points in time to where maybe the Russians had introduced it.
Post World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, after the Sino-Japanese
Because they never
war.
really got into it. Like, those two never really fought against each other. I mean, I'm sure I'm incorrect by saying that completely, but
Didn't
as
they
far
have
as,
a little kerfuffle before World War II that kind of...
Yeah, but that was what gave Japan all of the confidence about their navy, because they ended up at Vladivostok or wherever it was.
Yeah.
But then after that, I don't really, yeah.
Well, Japan had to play nice with everybody after World
That's
War
true.
II. So.
Very true.
The Olympic Village.
Sorry, who was the United? Did you name who the U.S. was with?
Yeah, the U.S. was with Sweden, the Czechoslovakia, not the Czech Republic yet, I don't think, Romania, West Germany, and Norway.
Okay.
So you have Norway.
There's only two divisions.
Yep. You have Norway being back in there. We know what happened last time they played the Norwegians.
Yeah.
The last 2 games. The Olympic Village it's an incredible place in most towns that they do the Olympics in now. You always hear about...
Is it?
Well...
The sheer scope of it's impressive, but like, remember during the last Summer Olympics, they're like, we're sleeping on fucking beds made of cardboard. where the frames were made of cardboard. You couldn't even fuck on those. That was the biggest complaint, is the beds weren't sturdy enough to fuck on.
Well, and then there was the Russian Olympics where the dude like punched through the door and stuff was half made. I'd like to believe that there are places where the Winter Village or whatever the hell they call it is a nice place. After the games happened in Lake Placid, the Olympic Village was turned into a prison. When they were asked about the conditions at the Olympic Village, Jim Craig said that they slept in trailers, like 4 to a trailer. That was how bad it was.
Okay.
You're bringing people from all over.
No,
the
you
world
are.
to
You
the
100%.
games.
I'm not making an excuse. What I'm saying is just from a standpoint of Lake Placid, New York. When we do Olympics now, even if it's in some place you haven't heard, there's an infrastructure that goes into the entire industry of the Olympics.
True.
They build the shit and then they say, hey, what are we going to do with all this shit? They said, that sounds like a problem for after the Olympics. I don't know necessarily if Lake Placid is like, you want us to construct what? A bunch of like hotels and everything? What do we do with these after? Like, we don't get enough people coming up here that this is feasible. What we can get you is trailers. We can get you a shit ton of trailers, a lot of campers up here.
Well, the family that came, there was like this big giant estate that somebody had donated, probably like their winter home.
Yeah.
That they donated, but then they charged them, I believe they charged the team rent or something like that and broke it up into like 8 different bedrooms. So it was just the U.S. family, all the players' families are just living in this one big mansion on this estate.
That is kind of cool, though.
Yeah, and it does turn out kind of cool because they talk about how, again, hockey wasn't always the biggest thing, but as the team would advance, you would see more families show up for the guys to be there. And they're doing these watch parties. If they're not going to the games, they're doing the watch parties inside the house.
That's also cool because these are hockey families.
Yeah.
Of everyone knows what everyone else's family has gone through the travel, through the, so they're like, we're just around people that we've always been around throughout these teams.
And they're not rich kids.
Yeah.
They're not coming from means. Like nowadays, hockey's fucking seems like a very expensive sport for your kid to be in. But these were all just kind of rough and tumble blue collar families.
Yeah, it was the sport to play where they were living and going to college.
So they definitely had kind of this camaraderie together. First game out of the gate, United States versus Sweden. The Swedes are going to be probably the biggest competition within this blue division. The Swedes do something to the U.S. that feels just like an epidemic. And it's something to where it makes the story so much better. Because I believe it's like there's only one game that this doesn't happen. Swedes jump out and go up 1-0 in the first period.
So a recurring theme throughout the entirety of the Olympic run for this team is going to be that they have always come back from behind.
Yeah. Tell me that that's not made for a movie.
It's awesome because that means that it wasn't just like, and then they fucking cruised through every round and then met the Soviets when they were on a hot streak. It's like nothing was for certain at any point during any game for this team during the Olympics. They never, and I think that's why everyone fucking loves this, is think of it this way. Had they just cruised through their round, what would happen to that game? The hype of that game with the Soviets, it would have been like, they have a chance. They're on a hot streak. There would have been none of this. It would have been like they're meeting them on equal footing. And then they win and you're like, well, yeah, there was an expectation to some degree that they were going to win this game. But when it's like they've been squeaking past these other teams that are much less talented than the Soviets, and then they meet, they're still that team that played them at Madison Square Garden, or maybe just a little better in people's eyes.
Yeah. And you have a game where if the Swedes are the best competition, you'd love a win, but even a tie keeps you in contention to move into the medal rounds.
It doesn't hurt you as much as the other thing.
Yep, you're still getting a point. It would take until all the way into the end of the second period. I believe there was like 30 seconds left for the United States to finally tie it up. So they went through essentially 2 periods of being behind where it's like, fuck, is this really how it's going to be?
But also with, with hockey being a lower scoring game, you're always within reach.
Yeah.
As long as you're not down 2-0, it's always, and then, yeah. So the Swedes scored with like 8.5 minutes in the first. Led, these are 20-minute periods, right?
Yep.
3 of them?
Yeah, I should look this up. This is how dumb I am with hockey. I'm pretty sure the hockey clock counts upwards. So it starts at 0, and then I think it gets up to 20.
Not the way they showed it. Counts down. I don't know if that's
does
dramatic
it?
effect. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure everything counts down.
Soccer doesn't.
Soccer counts up. You are correct, sir.
Yeah.
And that's because they need to add on time for injuries. Hockey doesn't do that.
Yeah, look that up. Make sure that I'm not talking directly out of my ass. One thing that happens that seems catastrophic, I'm sure this has to be in the movie because it's so just interesting. Rob McClanahan goes down with this thigh bruise that was described by the trainers and by McClanahan is running from his hip all the way to his knee.
Does it say what Herb says to him about it?
I don't know if it's the exact... Again, I haven't seen the movie, but the line that he gives is so funny. But it's also just so great to hear.
What does he tell to... This is Rob McClanahan,
Yeah,
right?
so McClanahan goes out. Herb hears that McClanahan's not coming back. At the end of the second period, they go in and McClanahan's laying on the table and he's being worked on. He's got ice packs just completely surrounding his leg.
3 20-minute periods, yeah.
Does the time count up, though?
Nope, it counts down.
Okay,
But
so I was wrong.
what I'm saying is for that Sweden game, that means that after they tied them, 20 minutes, you have to hold them. So that entire time, you're just waiting for a mistake. You're like, oh my God, if the Swedes make a mistake, we might win this. But at the same time, you're just like, oh fuck, we just barely tied this thing up.
We only got 20 minutes left to do something. He comes in, asks how it is, and he says that he's out. And he goes, what's wrong, already knowing? And they say that it's a bruise. And Herbie looks at McClanahan and he goes, your thigh's a long way from your heart.
Yeah, a bruise on the leg is a long way from the heart. And after he says that, Ron McClanahan gets fucking fired up. And he's like, you want me to go play? And they're having to hold him in the movie. They're having to hold him back. He's like, he says something. He's like, I thought you were a hockey player. He's like, I am a hockey player.
So from what it was this book that a reporter had written, and he had a pretty crazy insight because he was actually from Minnesota. And at points in time, Herb does certain things to the media, but this guy always kind of seems to be able to talk to Herb. He says that the story was that McClanahan jumped off the table and threw all the ice packs off and chased Herb out into the hallway and was just screaming his lungs out at Herb. Like at one point, Herb says that he thought he was going to punch him in the face. This is going on directly outside of the Swedish locker room. They're hearing this explosion happen.
Was this after the game or was this during?
Going into the third period. This is the second intermission. And McClanahan goes back and starts putting his pads on. And as Herb's walking down the hallway.
Oh, Callahan or McClanahan?
Or McClanahan.
Okay.
McClanahan goes in to put his pads back on because he's coming out to prove to Herb that he's going to do it. Herbie ends up walking by Patrick, and Herbie just has this smile on his face. Like, he knew that he figured out how to get McClanahan so fired up. McClanahan goes out and plays just a brilliant third period.
Yeah.
This guy who was just in there on the training table.
Because is he a defensive
He was,
guy?
I believe he's a left wing.
Okay.
So he's out there making passes. I believe he assisted on the tying goal. I'm not positive on that. Into the third, the Swedes pretty much immediately go up. 4 minutes in, they end up going up 2-1. And Baker, towards the end, finally sinks the goal to tie it up with 23 seconds left. Talk about cutting it close.
4 minutes into the third, 16 minutes left. You're playing down for 16. You're playing down for 15 minutes and 37 seconds.
Yeah. And then you finally do it. And
I don't know if you noticed, had they pulled the goalie?
I believe that they had pulled Craig.
That's such a crazy fucking move, right?
It
I
is,
understand
but-
it's normal in hockey.
Well, and you have to be on the offensive end when you do it. You have to know that these guys are just going to be trying to play defense and they're not trying to do anything but just kick it back down the ice.
I know they are, but at the same time, these guys are fucking good at passing.
Yeah.
They can hit a goal.
And for non-hockey people, you pull the goalie so you can put an extra offensive player out there. So you're playing basically 6-on-5, or I guess 6-on-6 with the goalie.
But you're in an offensive manner.
Yeah. This boosts U.S. confidence because they know that the Swedes are going to be the best that they're going to face. So if you can go in there with a tie, you can still get points. Tying the best team, if you take the top two from the division, you're going to be 1 or 2.
Yeah.
On the other side, in the red bracket, the USSR's first game is against Japan. If they thought the A-bomb was bad, the USSR dropped 16-0 on the Japanese. Just absolutely smoked them. And there were points in time when they would be talking to U.S. players. They're like, what do you think about what the Soviets did to the Japanese? They said, it's disrespectful. You don't do that. You don't keep trying to score when you're up 8-0 like that. And they go up 16-0. The Reds start out hot. Canada plays an interesting role in this. They smoke the Netherlands 10-1. So you have these two teams that are coming out in this red division playing very well. Then we get to the opening ceremonies. The opening ceremonies, the first games are played before the opening ceremonies.
Really?
Yeah. And I believe it's still that way now. I think hockey played before the opening ceremonies.
Okay, so you're saying like if March Madness... Fuck, how do I not know this? So you're saying if March Madness started like after the like round of 32 or 64 or something like that. Like they're playing it non-televised. It's not really part of the ceremonies of March Madness. But then...
Yeah, it's...
Am I making sense?
I would say it's like playing the play-in games now before March Madness.
Okay.
So you're playing the, whatever it is, the 12-13 seed to get in.
Okay.
Or the consolation for the 16 seed to get in.
Okay.
They're kind of just preliminary games, but they have to happen because they got to fit so many games in. They're playing like every other day.
Okay.
And the opening ceremonies hit for some reason. The United States marches in, and their attire is cowboy themed. Not like Texan cowboy, but more like Montana cowboy. They come in Wranglers and in cowboy boots, and they have, I think, like lambskin coats, and then they have cowboy hats. And if there's anybody that's going to hate a cowboy hat, it's Herb Brooks, because he doesn't want to look like a dumbass.
Mm-hmm. So I was going to say the guys from Boston, too.
I'm sure that they're young kids. They're going to enjoy that shit. They're going to enjoy cosplaying and dressing up. About 3 hours before the opening ceremonies happen, the hockey team shows up. Herb Brooks doesn't have his hat. The organizer's like, dude, where's your hat? He's like, I lost it. I don't know where it is. So they scramble to find this hat from some guy he got injured or something like that, somebody else that wasn't a hockey player. And they take his hat. This hat's like 3 times the size of the one that Herb's had, or that Herb fit. So they had to shove like socks in it to make it sit on his head.
It looks like a Cam Newton hat.
Pretty much, yeah. It looks like just this massive cowboy hat on this unassuming, angry-looking Herb Brooks, who has to be dressed up like this stupid cowboy. And then you park the USSR next to him as they walk in, just head to toe in furs. Just absolutely beautiful. They look like Russian bears walking in next to these dumb fucking hick cowboys. Not a good look.
So it already set the tone.
Pretty much. You can tell just from like the attire who's serious and who's just unserious.
Are there pictures of what they look like?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. 2 days later, the U.S. ends up crushing the Czech Republic. But again, the Czechs score the first goal. They would end up winning this 7-3. McClanahan scores the final goal in this game. So McClanahan's he's back on the healthier side of things. And that same day, the Netherlands end up drawing the Soviet straw and end up losing 17-4. The reason that a lot of these numbers are important is because if you end up with a tie in the same record, one of the tie breaks is goal differential. So when we talk about goal differentials for some of these standings here in a second, you're going to be like, holy shit.
So they're at 30. So the Russians, after 2 of these games, are at 33 goals.
33-4. So their goal differential puts them at plus 29. In that same day, Canada ends up taking out Finland 2-0. Oh, no. So after the first 2 games, Canada is 2-0. Finland is 1-1. The Swedes are 1-0-1. just like the United States and the blue division are 1-0-1. So in the red division, the top three are going to obviously be the USSR, then Canada, then Finland. They're fighting for 2 spots. On the blue side of things, it's pretty much just the Swedes and the U.S. team that are going to be fighting for these 2 spots. Game 3, February 16th. The U.S. smashes Norway 5-1. It's funny when I talk about what the Soviets do, and then I say that the U.S. smashed them 5-1.
Yeah, it's all, yeah.
It's a little bit different. But again, Norway scores the first goal. Then the U.S. goes on to score 5 unanswered to finish out this game. USSR comes on board that same day, ends up beating Poland 8-1. The Finns beat the Canadians, so that makes Canada and Finland both 2-1. But the first tiebreak out of that is head-to-head. The second tiebreak is goal differential. Swedes end up winning their game for the blue division. Swedes are 2-0-1, just like the United States, so they're kind of staying chalk. Game 4, the United States beats Romania 7-2. Guess who scores first this time? United States. The only time during this whole entire Olympics that they score the first goal are against the Romanians.
Did the Romanians then score 2 to put the United States?
I don't know if the U.S. ever trailed in this series or in this game, but they end up beating them pretty convincingly. Soviets beat the Finns 4-2. So they remain undefeated, but at the same time, 4-2 is a lot different from anything else that the Soviets have played.
Oh, yeah. You still have less goals in those games than they had against Japan.
Yeah. And the Finns afterwards are talking to the media, and they say, I think the Soviets are beatable. I think the United States might be able to give them a run if they play. So just a little bit of foreshadowing where maybe we finally see a small crack in the armor of the Soviets. Canada ends up beating Japan 6-0. So at the end of the 4 games, you had the United States, it's 3-0-1. The Swedes are 3-0-1 for the blue division. Then you have this other race that's going on in the red divisions where the Finns are 2-2, Canada's 3-1. Canada's in that second spot.
So they ended up trailing Finland. It was behind in every game. So they scored the first goal. Finland scored 2.
Except for the Romania game.
Oh, sorry. Well, no, it says every...
I'm pretty sure they ended up scoring.
It says Team USA came from behind against Sweden, Czechoslovakia, Norway, Romania, and West Germany.
Was that all of them?
Okay, I'll keep looking. You keep going.
Game 5. We see a pretty big incident. Pre-game, Jim Craig takes a slap shot to the throat. Jim Craig, the goalie that's getting ready to play against West Germany, who's pretty apt, ends up taking a slap shot to the throat that drops him to the ground, and he's down on the ground for a number of minutes. He ends up getting pulled off. So we're thinking that this is Janny time. We're thinking Steve Januzak is going to step out there. He's finally going to get his Olympics moment. He's going to go out there, and he's going to be able to goaltend against West Germany. As soon as the game starts, Jim Craig goes skating out onto the ice and takes goal for the United States. Steve Januzak isn't out there. Jim Craig may have just been knocked out before the game because they didn't know if it hit him in the helmet. They didn't know if it hit him in the throat. Mm-hmm. This isn't found out till after the game. First period starts, puck drops. West Germany fires like a 50-foot goal that Craig doesn't even see. Fires right past him.
You are right. They never trailed that game.
They never trailed in the...
Romania. Or no, yeah, they were never behind Romania.
So they did score first.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you were right about that. I just wondered if Romania ever took the lead from them.
AI. Fuck AI, huh?
So they fire so basically they're firing it. They pass it after the puck drop and fire just to test the waters.
Yeah, it was pretty quick into the game that they fire this long shot, ends up getting past Craig. Then another long shot, Craig ends up seeing, but he's not moving fast enough. There's something seriously wrong with Jim Craig, and they don't know what's going on yet, and they don't know why Herbie hasn't pulled it.
Do they know who hit him with the slap shot?
I believe it was Ruzioni. I believe it was the captain. So
that's what's so crazy is that self-inflicted.
Yeah, and we're going to find out why it's even crazier than that. After this, the U.S. ends up scoring 4 consecutive goals, so Craig finally figures it out. I don't know if he shook the cobwebs, but U.S. scores 4 consecutive goals. They end up beating them. I don't have that one written down. They end up beating the West German team. Maybe 5? No.
I'll figure it out.
Okay. After the game, this reporter goes up and he's speaking to Jim Craig. He goes, "What happened, dude? Why were you out there?" He goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I saw you take that slap shot and go down on the ice." He's like, "Oh, yeah, it hit me in the throat, knocked the wind out of me. I was fine. Don't worry about it. That didn't affect it. Those goals, nobody could have seen those goals." And the reporter's like, "Okay, whatever." He goes and he talks to Herbie after the game, and he goes, "Was there any thought to not put Jim Craig in the game and to start Januzak?" And Herbie goes, "No."
The reporter goes to ask that?
Yeah, the reporter goes to ask Herbie that. Herbie basically locks himself up in this manager's room because he gets tired of hearing from the press. Because one of the things that he did was he said that he wasn't ever going to bring any of his guys on stage after a game to talk to the press. And there's this asshole reporter that has just always been a prick that wrote this article basically saying that Herb wasn't being fair to the media because he wasn't allowing them to do any sort of interviews. And Herb strikes back and he goes, "All right, well, I'm not really going to handle this anymore. I will bring 2 guys to the interviews, but after we get done with these press conferences, if you guys want to talk to me, you're not going to be able to talk to me or the players." He tells this one reporter from Minnesota, "I'm going to be in this locker room after the game. You can come talk to me personally. You can talk to my guys, whatever." So he comes in and he's talking to Herb. He's like, "Didn't think that Januzak would have been the better play after what happened to Craig?" And he goes, "No, it was fine." And he goes, "You saw what happened to Jim Craig, right?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "He took a slap shot to the throat and was down on the ice for minutes." And Herbie goes, "What?" Herbie was still in the locker room while they were warming up and didn't see what happened to Jim Craig out on the ice. And nobody told him. Not the coaches, not the players. When Herb comes out, he has no idea that Craig was just unconscious on the ice for a matter of minutes before this game happens.
It was 4-2.
Oh, was it 4-2?
Yeah. Like the trainer, and no one's like, "Hey," looking at after he misses me, like, it's okay. Craig got walloped a little bit before the game. He'll come in and do it. And he's like, "What do you mean?"
No idea. No idea that this happens. But that was just how good of a guy Januzak was. Januzak didn't see that happening and then run to her and be like, "Hey, Craig's asleep on the ice. I'm going to start
after
getting
the
my
second
pads
goal
ready."
or something like that. Yeah.
Nobody says a word. That's just how tight-knit these guys were. Okay, so they finished with the 4 consecutive goals. That makes sense for 4-2. So this puts the Soviets get a second true test on this same day. They end up going down 3-1 in the second period to Canada. This is like their first time being in a serious situation, and the Canadians kind of freeze up. They just go into defensive mode from then on because they know that they can't let the Soviets come back, so they stop playing offense. It ends up turning the other way, and the Soviets do end up winning. I believe they closed the game on like a 5-1 heater, so they end up beating the Canadians 6-4. They just kind of fall apart trying to preserve themselves. So the rankings now in the blue division, the Swedes are in first place based on goal differential with the United States. They're both 4-0-1. The Swedes are plus 19 for goal differential, so they've scored 19 more goals than they've given up. The United States is plus 15. Okay. So they have a plus 4 goal differential. The red division, okay, so the Swedes are plus 19 and the United States are plus 15. That's goal differential for the 2 leading teams coming out of the blue division.
Gotcha.
Right? The Soviet Union.
That's only for their division.
Yeah.
Okay.
Soviet Union is 5-0-0. Their goal differential is plus 40. The Soviet Union has a goal differential higher than the other 2 teams that are coming out of the blue division.
Combined.
Yeah, combined. The Finns and the Canadians are both 3-2 or 3-2-0. The Canadians' goal differential is plus 16, whereas the Finns are plus 8. But the Finns beat the Canadians.
Because that's what it goes to. First is head-to-head.
First tiebreaker is head-to-head.
And then it goes to
goal differential. So the Canadians are left out. The Canadians go to the consolation bracket.
Because now it comes down to 4 teams. So in these 4 teams, it is the Soviet Union, the United States, Finland, and Norway.
Sweden.
Sweden, sorry. Yeah, Sweden.
Just crazy how that all works out.
Now, this is basically the medal round, right?
Yeah, and the medal rounds are broken up a little differently. It's goofy how they do it because they carry in the game record against the other team that made it in.
Okay.
So since the United States and the Swedes both go in, they go into the final round as 0-0-1 because
Okay.
they tied each other. But the Soviets go in at 1-0, and the Finns go in at 0-1 because the Soviets beat the Finns.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's how everything kind of starts out that way. But because of the way this breaks and because of the goal differential, this means that the first game that's going to be played in this round robin tournament for the medals is going to be the USSR against the United States.
So when it splits into these 4 teams, it is no longer division. It is these 4 teams now playing each other. So this isn't like a NFC AFC situation where you get the 2 best teams. They then play each other again to see who represents both sides. Nuh-uh. You've now got the 4 best, and they're going to all play each other regardless of what division they started out in.
And there's a good chance that had the United States beaten Sweden or had they beaten them in goal differential, you have the second game that's being played in this round robin tournament being the big game.
Yeah.
You have that
For the gold medal.
The game of this. Well, it's round robin, so it's based on points for the medals.
Okay.
And we'll talk about how all that's set up. But basically, out of the second game, your record after the second game is where the medal standings are going to be.
Okay.
But after this game, USSR and the United States, if this miracle on ice happens, they still have to play another game after that. So you have to still get up after this big performance. And the way that this is going to work is it's a game of the century. It has to be shown in the United States, right? It has to be shown in prime time. The IIHC refused to move the time slot. This game was supposed to be, or was going to be played at 5 p.m. And ABC, who's carrying it for the network, their primetime slot started at 8 p.m. So they asked the IIHC to move it back 3 hours so they could show it live in the United States. And the IIHC was like, nah. Because if we do it then, it's not going to be played at 1 a.m. in the USSR. It's going to be played at 4 a.m. in the USSR. And we don't want to screw them up. So ABC goes, fuck, all right, whatever. We'll tape it at 5, and then we will show it at 8 o'clock in the United States. So this game that is possibly the greatest game in U.S. history had to be taped to be shown in the United States.
Okay, so hang on a second. Okay. I know this sounds like something not to be, like, questioning, but most people that say they watched this game when it happened did not actually watch this game when it happened, regardless if they saw it the same day or whatever. When they watched it on ABC at 8 o'clock, the game had been over. So people had the ability to know that and probably did so because it would have been all over, that prior to watching this game, this was going to be a United States victory.
45 years, there was no social media. There was
No, I
internet.
completely understand that. And that's why I think there's still this feeling of like, feeling like you watched it live because you may not have been in a position to hear what had actually happened. It's just funny to me to say there's only 8,500 people that were sitting there watching this as it happened that could say, I saw it happen when it happened.
Quite possibly the funniest thing about that is it was Jim Craig, and I don't know if it was Ruzioni. It was Jim Craig and one of the other BU guys, and they were fishing buddies. And they said over their lifetimes, with as many fishing trips and everything that they've taken, they've heard at least 30 to 35,000 people say that they were there live to see the game.
Yeah.
Stadium holds 8,500 people, so there's a lot of people.
We know a portion of them because they were family members and stuff like that. So that even minuses out from that.
A lot of people stretching the truth on being there live. But maybe the coolest part about it, I guess we'll talk about the coolest part about it, but the interesting part about it was Canada didn't have ABC. Canada was the only place in North America that showed the U.S. game, the U.S.-USSR game live.
Okay.
So all the Canadians got to see this happening in real time while all the people in the United States had to wait 3 hours for it to happen.
You have a place that is just the border of Canada, the United
Buffalo?
States, and there's a town right on the other side of it, and they just go around. They're like, "Congratulations!" They're like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You guys beat the Russians." They're like, "What?"
That doesn't happen for 3 more hours. What are you talking about, you idiots? So earlier games had been pretty sparsely attended, but as the United States has picked up steam, you start to see this 8,500 seat arena just fill up. The people finally had a reason to cheer. They were proud. And the opening line that Al Michaels uses when it cuts to the feed is he says, "There's a lot of people around the country that are new to hockey. Most of the people watching this game are not going to know the blue line from a clothesline."
Yeah.
Just
That's part of he says that in the movie. Yeah. It's
out-
much more like in the background. Yeah.
pointing out that there's not a lot of hockey fans in the United States, but there's a lot of people that need a win.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that need to feel something.
They understand the
going on.
gravity of the game just by who it's being played against.
Yeah. And it's just such this perfect encapsulation of like, nobody knows what's going on, but we always understand what a score is.
Yeah.
You always understand how a score works. You don't know how you get there. You just know that if the puck goes in the net for your team, you're happy.
Yeah.
And happy is something that you haven't really felt against the Soviet Union in recent years. Herb lights a fire with just his quick speech before the game. He says, "You were born a player. You were meant to be here. The moment's yours." Then he says, "The game plan is to play your game. We're going to play short shifts, and we're going to push into the third." Puck drops, first period, U.S. again falls to this 1-0 deficit. There's a slap shot that goes in at 9:12. United States ends up tying it 5 minutes later on a 50-foot slap shot. Almost center ice, just launches it in. And you have Tretiak that's sitting there in goal, the greatest goalie in the world, the guy that just absolutely made them look silly like less than a month ago at Madison Square Garden. And you're out there doing it again. Tretiak lets one go. You're tied at that point in time. Soviets respond 3 minutes later. So you had 3 minutes of being like, hey, we're still in this. Soviets score again. You go back down 2-1. Is this going to happen again? Is Madison Square Garden going to get us the exact same way? Except for they don't even think about that. They're not thinking about Madison Square Garden. It's a different team that's playing now. In the closing seconds of the first period, Soviet defenders are just kind of lackadaisical. There's points in time where they're talking to them and they said that they're watching the clock and they see that there's 10 seconds left. They start skating for their benches. Tretiak admits that he's looking up at the clock when this whole thing begins to happen. So these guys are caught off guard because they're just not in this the way that they should be in it.
It's their circumstances. It's what's led to this point. Yeah, they've been paying attention maybe to the scores for the other division, but the way they're looking at it, those are just teams that we would beat the same way that we're beating these teams 16-0, 17-4. This thing has been, we have not gotten really challenged until it was the Canadians.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they've played us in tournaments before. They've played us in games before. Like when they came back to Russia and they did 1-3.
Yeah.
There was probably a little bit more respect and a little bit more hustle on that. The last experience they have about playing the United States was Madison Square Garden. They're in that mindset of, we just have to play like we did at Madison Square Garden, and this thing's going to be a walk in the park. We still got another game after this. Maybe let's not, we don't have to try our best. We can save a little bit in the tank.
Yeah, we got a 2-1 lead. We still got 2 more periods to play. We'll add on to this lead. With about 10 seconds left, Dave Christian, guy that we were talking about that was his father's son, ends up firing a 100-foot slap shot at Tretiak. Tretiak gets in front of this and stops. Rebound bounces off of Tretiak. Mark Johnson ends up splitting both of the defenders that are in the Soviet zone, picks up the rebound, pulls this quick little fancy move around Tretiak and dumps it in. Red light goes off. Green light goes off. He scores us with a second left in the first period to tie it up.
I'm watching the movie in my head right now as you describe this, and I'm seeing each of these moments.
Tikhonov doesn't think it goes in. Tikhonov pulls everybody off for the first intermission and takes him back.
Yeah, he's gesturing to the scoreboard, the time and everything like that, saying it didn't go in. The buzzer went off first.
And the officials get together. They watch the replay. They say, well, that light can't go on before this light, so this has to count. They end up bringing couple lines out from the Soviet locker room just to do one more face-off to run out the last second.
Mm-hmm.
They go back into the locker room, and Tikhonov does, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know why he did it. I don't know if this was some weird disrespect USSR thing. But he pulls the incredibly dumb move and pulls Trekiak for the backup Vladimir Mishkin. Trekiak, again, I've sung this dude's praises, and watching his interviews, he's a very likable guy. He's asked years later when he just gets run into by this hockey reporter in an airport, and he asked Trekiak, he goes, "What do you think about Tikhonov pulling you after the first?" And Trekiak at this point is so far removed that he's like, it was the dumbest decision that anybody's ever made on a hockey rink. It was the worst thing that could have happened. And this Soviet spirit shows Trekiak for the rest of the game just kind of sitting on the bench emotionless because he's not going to get up and fight for it because he knows that there's a hierarchy. You don't talk back to the coach in the USSR over there. Mishkin comes in. Michigan comes in for the second period, and it's not like this guy was just some schmo off the street. Again, he's the second best goalie on a professional Olympic team, basically.
Yes, he was a national championship winning college goalie. Like, he's capable.
He's also a guy that...
Oh, no, sorry. I was talking about Janusek. Sorry about that.
No. Michigan was the goalie that came in, and he played the entire final game against the NHL All-Stars in that Challenge Cup.
That's what I'm saying.
He shut out the NHL All-Stars.
He's the second best behind the best.
He's second best in a situation where he's still probably top 5 goalies in the world.
Better. I'm guessing better than that.
Yeah. And Michigan comes in, he plays a very good game. The second period starts 2-2, and Michigan's pretty dominant. But the reason that he's so dominant is because shots on goal, so shots taken at the goal in a serious manner during the second period, favored the Soviets 12-2. The United States only gets 2 shots to test Michigan in the second period, where the Soviets are dumping 12 shots down at Craig at the other end.
Yeah, I think they said that during the entirety... for Tretiak, during the entirety of the Olympics, that he had 8 goals allowed. Now, that was during all the games they played up to this point.
Insane. Absolutely insane that that's all that he's given up. The Soviets end up taking advantage on a power play, and they go up 3-2. They end up holding the lead throughout the second period. The Soviets are still just calm and steady on the ice. There's really no emotion. This is just very clinical for them. And the third period starts, and it's pretty steady until the U.S. ends up gaining an advantage via power play. 6:47 into the third period. Towards the end of that power play, Dave Silk, who's a right wing, ends up getting tripped up, slides this pass as he's falling over to Mark Johnson. Mark Johnson fires a shot right past Michigan in the goal to tie it up. 8:39 into the third period. So we still got 11 minutes and 21 seconds.
So that's 2 for Johnson.
2 for Johnson. This shouldn't be happening. Based upon everything that we've known about how these two teams play each other, the fact that the U.S. are hanging in there in the third period and they're still playing, it's because Herb trained him for this.
Yeah.
This is the whole sophisticated pond hockey, keep playing your game. Throughout this whole entire time is they're down. The only thing that Herbie's yelling is keep playing your game. We're not going to conform and be desperate against a team that refuses to change themselves.
Don't play their game. Because they're going to beat you at their game.
As soon as we get desperate, they take advantage. That's how they beat everybody. It's a war of attrition out there, and as soon as you break and you try something, that's when they go up by 5 goals. After Johnson ends up tying it up, it comes very quickly. Center Mark Pavlich ends up firing a shot, or he fired a pass to the captain, Michael Eruzione, the left winger out there. Rizzo sets up. He sees that Michigan is screened off by his own man, fires it right past Michigan, and you see the United States go up 4-3. It was just the most beautiful setup to where the defender just basically crosses in front of Michigan's eyesight. He knows that he's got a split second to do this, and he sinks it.
Was this right? Did Eruzione just come in the game?
He had just come off the bench. They were just in the middle. They didn't do a full line change. They had just swapped him out.
So he's coming off,
He's
calling for the pass. He hits him, and he's so within seconds of coming onto the ice, he comes in during this chaotic moment of changing around and fires this thing in. Did he do the dance? Did you see the footage of him doing the dance?
I didn't see any footage of it.
Okay, so as he scores this, and I want to say, like, I've seen in documentaries or heard that he actually did this. It's in the new Netflix one.
Yeah, there's a reason why I probably missed it, and it's because I was crying at this point in time.
Okay, so as he does it, he basically just starts high-stepping along the side and is just like, he's like, I don't know where it came from. He's like, that just felt what we were doing. And basically, you have a 8,500-person stadium that is witnessing something they never thought. They're going fucking bananas. The team is coming out on the ice and just going against the boards and surrounding Rizzo and everything. And now they've still got how much longer on the clock to try to hang on to this?
10 minutes. 10 minutes, you have a 1-goal lead. You can't really tie the Soviets because that doesn't do anything for you in points. They're already 1-0. You're 0-0-1. You have to be able to close it out. And this is that mode that Canada got in when they were up by 2 and they just started playing defense for so long that they got away from their game. Even though Canada was up, they got desperate and they changed their game to something the Soviets could take advantage of. Except for the Soviets refused to change their game plan. And you have Herb on the sideline just screaming, play your game. Don't fall into this. Mm-hmm. You know, we're not going to push the puck on offense, but you guys are going to just know what you're doing out there. There's going to be nothing erratic that you're going to do.
Keep putting pressure on them too, playing the same game we've been playing, because if we keep attacking, we have been scoring.
Yeah.
They have to worry about us scoring now, so they can't just, and they have to score. So they have to be attacking while at the same time knowing that we have the capability with these fresh legs and these guys that now have the confidence of knowing that they can score on you. They're going to be also pushing as well.
No penalties. Don't give them a power play. That's how they got their last score.
And it doesn't seem like a position, except when they were playing against Canada and everything, that this guy's probably not the coach is probably not super familiar with how to handle this situation.
Yeah, why?
Exactly,
You're not in it very often. It's a situation where they just didn't change at all because they weren't ever, in the position. When you get down to the final, I believe it was the final minute, they had a face-off that was down in the U.S. end. They didn't pull their goalie. The Soviets refused to pull their goalie. They didn't want to give themselves a man advantage.
Did they ever have to do that?
Probably not. I mean, it wasn't ever
what
really.
What if you never practiced for that because you never had to?
A necessity.
There was never a plan. Like, you never knew when to do it because you never had to.
Yeah. And meanwhile, you have the U.S. playing this game where you can't do anything stupid. We're down in that end. You can't let them tie. You can't take this into the third period, end up going up and being able, this miraculous comeback. You just can't give up. And as they're passing around, you have the United States that are intercepting passes. You have them working the defense. Every shot that the USSR is firing is going wide left, wide right. There was actually one that fired off of the post that you can just hear. Yeah, you can just hear the desperation as Al Michaels just screamed, off the post, off the post. He's keeping everybody informed of what's going on. And in the final seconds, you were in 5, 4, 3,
the whole crowd,
2, everybody's going nuts. And then he screams, do you believe in miracles? Which feels like a pretty crazy original line, except for that same line was said back in 1960 when Al Michaels was up in the booth for the call that happened during this last game.
He called it in 60?
No, he heard the announcer as he was up in the booth saying it. So this isn't the first time that they've heard it, but this is the first time in 20 years that the United States sees their path to a gold. Everybody goes nuts. The crowd breaks into this chorus of God Bless America. Hilariously enough, the guys that were down on the ice that were singing along said we had to let some of the guys know what the words were as they were singing it because they didn't even know.
And we touched on this earlier, like way earlier in the episode. This is where they start, not at this point, but when they were going up and when they were playing the game of USA.
Yeah.
USA, right?
And again, I think this is a little like the flag thing, but at the same time, it's just cool to think that this is finally something that's catching on.
So during this game, the United States took a total of 16 shots on goal. The Soviets recorded 39 shots on goal. That means that the United States scored on 25% of their shots. That's nuts. Every fourth shot.
But
they made it count.
It means that they're playing such a defensive game. They're down on their end for so long that they only have 16 attempts to get a shot on goal.
Exactly. And the other side of it is 39 shots, which means they scored 3 of those shots. Craig had 36 saves. The other goalie Craig had 3 times as many saves. That's why I also think you need to watch the movie. If you just watch that last game, it's because watching that game, you get the sense that it all hinged on Craig and the way that he's blocking these shots.
Yeah.
And part of his story, and I think you mentioned on too, was the story with him and his dad and everything. And so, like, his dad's there watching him and everything. But the way that this guy is literally just keeping them in, especially when the Soviets go on the attack and they're just launching stuff at him and he's knocking it down like stick save, like pad save. It's nuts.
You want to? We'll do a little Jim Craig here because he's awesome. Jim Craig, growing up in Boston, absolutely had dreams of playing for Boston College. It was the preeminent premier hockey college to go to. He goes in there for a tryout. He says, I'm all of 5'4" at this point in time. I know that Boston College is not going to probably want to take me, but I got to go in there and I got to try. They say it's not going to happen. You're a great goalie, but you're just not going to fit into this. So he goes back and he's just working and ends up running into somebody that he had known from Boston College who was coming off of an NHL career and he was going to be a coach. He goes and talks to Jim Craig and he says, hey, I know that you're a great hockey player. I know that you want to continue. You're not going to Boston College. Obviously, we've talked about this. Come play for me and we'll see what we can do. And he goes, sure, I don't have any other options really. What college? He goes, Massasoit College. It was like this junior college in Massachusetts. And he's like, yeah, I don't really think that I want to do that. And he goes, you just said you don't have any other options.
Yeah.
So would you like to come to Massasoit
You want to play
and
hockey?
play for me?
Yeah.
He says, sure, I'll do that. So he goes and he plays at Massasoit. He ends up getting a tryout to go play for Boston University. It comes down to him and another guy. The coach brings him in. He goes, I want to give you this spot on the team. And he goes, perfect, I'll take it. And he goes, there's actually another guy, though, that we've offered this position to, and he's going to end up being the guy that takes it because he's just better. If he takes it, the spot's not available. If he doesn't take it, we'd love to have you there. This guy looks at the Boston University team, this other guy, and he sees that they have an all-conference goalie. This guy's already a great goalie. He wants to play faster than that. He ends up taking his opportunity at Brown. Jim Craig gets to come to Boston University. First 3 games of that season, the guy shits his pants. This all-conference goalie that's there in front of Jim Craig shits his pants. Jim Craig comes online at Boston University as their goalie, as the backup, the guy that went to Massasoit, that got turned down by Boston College. And he says through his career playing at Boston University, every single time they would go play Boston College and they would beat them, he'd skate up to the coach and he'd shake his hand. He goes, boy, I'm glad you didn't want me on your team.
Yeah.
He's just such a firecracker, just such a strong figure throughout this whole entire thing. Right before he goes to, I don't know if it's while he's at Boston University, but his mom dies of cancer.
So there's Boston College and Boston University.
Yeah, Boston College is...
Okay, so where does he end up going to?
Boston University.
And who was the one that turned him down?
Boston College.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that's where I was. Yeah, okay.
So every time they went and played BC, he was just telling him, I'm so glad you didn't pick me.
Yeah.
He has such a cool story throughout this. And Januzak he ends up talking about how he's the guy that wins the Olympics out of everybody else. He never took a step onto the ice during a game or anything like that. But he actually met his wife, who was an interpreter for the Olympics, that was there, and they're still married. Like, everybody wins, but the game's not over, or the mission's not over. It turns into this deal where they'd finally beaten the Soviets. They'd finally gotten the monkey off their back. They're right there. But there's a chance that they don't walk, as little as this chance is, and we're going to talk about it here. So if the Finns and the Swede had tied, that meant that if the U.S. lost to Finland by a large margin, so like a matter of goals, we're back to that weird goal differential thing, where if they lose to Finland by enough goals, there's a chance that they could slip behind the Finns and the Swedes, and then the Soviet Union.
Yeah, because it would go first to head, even if they had the same record. So the Finns would already be above them in that. And then if they had the same record but didn't go head to head and didn't have that, it would go goal differential.
It's just this stupid setup with this round robin tournament where it's based on points for all of these different games. And it's a pretty long shot. It ends up happening that the Soviets crush Sweden. This means that the U.S. had to beat Finland to win gold. Had they lost to Finland via this round-robin tournament, the Soviets would take the gold and the U.S. would end up taking the silver just based upon the points of the Soviets going in with that one win over Finland already. So they would be 2-1-0, and the United States would be 1-1-1.
Yeah.
It was just crazy how this all comes about, that they did the big thing. The miracle on ice happens, and they still have to win another game to get a gold. And prior to this game, Herbie, there's some debate on when this happens. I bet this didn't happen in the Disney movie. But they said that it happened earlier against the Swedes. I've heard it happen before this game. Herb, right before, walks into the locker room and he goes, if you lose this game, you will take this loss to your fucking graves. And as he's walking out, he opens the door and he turns around again and he goes, your fucking graves.
In the movie, he just simply says, my boys beat Sweden, coming from behind once again. He didn't mention that they were going to take it to their fucking graves, but I see that needing to be left out of a Disney movie.
Yeah. But that's the mode that Herbie takes towards these games. Is he has to get them fired up somehow. And then he finally did the big thing. He's like, they hate me. They already hate me. I might as well say something that's going to impact them enough to light that fire again that was probably pretty extinguished after the emotional dump of
the
beating
adrenaline,
Soviets.
of beating the Soviets and everything, and then having to kind of rally back to understand the job's not finished.
Man, again, final game starts off just the same way. The Finnish end up scoring a goal 9 minutes into the game. The U.S. ties it in the second, 1-1. And there's this feeling of like, hey, we're in this, but again, it's not the Soviets. We still have to win this. The Finns end up dumping in one more in the second period to go up 2-1 going into the third. The second intermission, Herb walks into the locker room and he's looking around and he kind of sees that everybody's sort of on edge. And he realizes the fucking grave speech probably isn't what we want to do here. So before saying anything, he exits the locker room and he goes up to Patrick and he goes, hey, man, go in there and give him something inspirational. Patrick walks into the locker room, and as he's walking into the locker room, everybody's screaming, we're not going to fucking lose this game. Patrick turns around. He walks out. Herbie looks at him, and he goes, how did it go? Patrick just gives him a thumbs up. Yeah, I think they're ready. And they end up leaving.
I didn't need to say much.
Yep. They're in there talking about how this is going to be the final 20 minutes that they play together, and they're not going to lose. And God, that cough got me. The final 20 minutes, the U.S. scores 3 unanswered goals. They're out there to win this game and finish the job 4-2. They end up beating the Finns, and then the party begins. O'Callaghan, who hadn't really been playing because of his knee injury, as soon as that final buzzer goes off, Herbie says that he would like to believe that this was just O'Callaghan trying to get onto the ice. Forearms Herbie in the side of the head and knocks him over. He knocks over his head coach as he's going out there to party.
Emotions are sky high, man.
Jim Craig is circling the rink looking for his dad, trying to find him in the crowd. Gets the flag, wears the flag around. It's just these beautiful moments. And then afterwards, Herbie goes, everybody gets to go talk to the press. All these guys that were just partying and drinking in the locker room are going to go up and sit in front of the press.
The job is done.
Yeah. Answer all these questions. Herbie's not out there. Herbie's hanging out back in the locker room, just soaking all this in. He cried like a baby after they beat the USSR. Mm-hmm. That's these guys' moments. He doesn't want to say anything that's going to squash what's going on. So as this presser is going on, Jack O'Callaghan walks in. He says 4 beers in. He sits down at the table. They go, how does it feel? He goes, the United States, or he goes, I'm from Massachusetts, I'm from Boston, I'm from near Bunker Hill. When they came on, our boys defended Bunker Hill and we won Bunker Hill, and then we just beat the Soviets and won again. And one of the reporters goes, Jack, we lost at Bunker Hill. And Jack pauses for a second and he looks at the guy and he goes, I don't want to hear that, man. He was so...
Come on, man, just go with it.
He's so fired up. He's from Boston. He gets taught this all the time, and he's just so drunk.
Maybe that's the thing, is they taught him in Boston that they actually didn't lose Bunker Hill.
That's how they tell everybody.
It's like how they call it the War of Southern Independence.
The War of Northern Aggression.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting way to look at it. But just so Callahan, man, I don't want to hear that. And this team, this whole thing kind of changes the way that this all goes, because you start to see, there was a point in time where I don't remember if it was the Swedish team or the Finnish team. They were talking to the coach after the game and they said, how do you feel going into the next Olympics? Was this enough for your team to go into the next Olympics? And he goes, there's a lot of people with a lot of deep pockets that were here watching my guys play. I don't know if my team's going to look the same come next Olympics. And
you're the team that just beat the Soviets, man. Like, you think that there aren't going to be every NHL team?
This was one of the European teams.
Oh, okay.
So one of the teams that didn't beat the Soviets. But it was in Lake Oswego on this stage in front of all these NHL owners that are taking notice of these foreign
I gotcha.
players
Okay. Yes. Okay.
that are going to be pulled into the NHL. 13 of the 20 guys on the U.S. team end up going and playing into the NHL. So even though these weren't the best guys that were chosen, they were all still that good that 13 of the 20 guys end up playing professionally in the NHL. It goes until 1998 for the IIHC to open up Olympic hockey for pro hockey players.
So up until 1998, it was amateur hockey players.
Still amateur hockey players, yeah. That was how long it took for them to finally understand that this product is on a world stage and we need to make it look as good as possible.
Yeah.
But also, I got to think that those European teams and kind of the powerhouses that were over there playing were a little bit bummed when it happened, because it means that their guys aren't going to be playing locally. They can still come back and play in the Olympics, but all of your non-Olympic national team games are going to look a little bit different because the best guys are over playing.
It's just like in the MLB today.
Yeah, very similar for when the World Baseball Classic happens and they all go back and play there. It's a phenomenal story. And hockey, again, is not something that's right up my alley. I know enough to sound really stupid, like with that clock comment, but you don't need it. You don't need the NHL hockey knowledge to be able to look at this and understand that this was a turning point.
Yeah. It honestly, I think you had it on the first board, but it was more than a hockey game.
Yeah. It was something that we needed to kind of get back on the horse.
Yeah.
And something we didn't understand. It was something the United States was a little foreign to.
Yeah.
But at the same time.
That's what makes it even crazier.
Yeah.
Hey, we're so good at this thing that we didn't even really know about.
Well, and not to mention, this is the hockey boom in the United States. This is when you start seeing these areas that don't have hockey teams that are starting to push to get these programs, because you have something that's spread all this pride over the United States. These kids are looking at it in Houston and be like, Dad, why can't I play hockey?
I want to be the next generation that wins this. Yeah.
So these kids that grew up on this, seeing this happen in their childhood during the 80s, begin to grow into what professional hockey looks like in the United States and these college programs that, I'll be honest, there's a lot of college programs that I hear. I'm like, what the fuck is that?
USC has a hockey team. It's fucking Southern California. What are you doing?
But then you hear about like Bemidji State.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like basketball. Like there's schools that Wichita State. When do you hear Wichita State other than college basketball?
Yeah. They're bad enough in football that you never really hear about them. There's just these mid-major teams. But it blows me away that these schools in Minnesota, it feels like every single school. And when we were in Minneapolis, we went to the University of Minnesota and saw their their facilities. Pretty sick. Pretty cool to see. But then you have like St. Cloud State that's also very close that has a program, and all of these Minnesota Duluths and everywhere.
Yeah.
And every school in
They
a
know
cold
they can't
area.
field a football team. There's too much competition for that. But fuck it, we can field a hockey team.
Yeah, we don't have enough time outside where it's warm enough to play football, but we can play hockey year round.
Exactly. All right, man. You got anything else?
No, I hope that everybody enjoys that as much as I do. We're going to be releasing this, I think, right around the time for the gold medal games. I don't know where the United States is right now. I don't know if we're in the running. I don't know how fantastic we are, but it's just, unfortunately, I don't know if anything on hockey is ever going to mean as much as this game, man.
I think that's a good way to put it. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us on another episode. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for another episode. If you like what you heard, hit that subscribe and like button. Follow us. If you didn't like what you heard, still hit that anyway, because we'll probably cover something in the future that you do like. Please follow us on our social media. Adam, hit him with it.
Our Instagram is historically high pod, historically high pod, and we are on Twitter at historically high. That's historically HI.
All right. And if you guys want to send in any feedback, suggestions, hit us up on those two, or you can even do it on Gmail. It's historicallyhighpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again.
Peace.